the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning to you. It's 3 minutes past 10 o'clock. This is Talk, the home of common sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Thank you very much indeed for your company. Whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, absolutely fantastic to have your company. And even more of you than ever before. Thank you very much. Got our latest figures, and we are really, really, really chuffed that you have stood by us over all these years. I, in particular, having been here almost 10 years now. I mean, basically, to keep this basically saying, no, please leave. But no, I'm still stuck with you, and you're stuck with me, I'm afraid. But it's been an absolute pleasure being here for, in March, a full exact 10 years since we've been on air. Lots of changes, lots of moves, but we are still here, we are still going, and we've got you to thank for that. So thank you very much. Lots to talk about today. Small matter of the Prime Minister may or may not keep his job over the latest scandal. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. A Prime Minister basically inviting someone, a proven liar, someone who knew, he's admitted yesterday, knew at the time, had been carried on being mates with the man after he'd been convicted as a paedophile. Indeed, stayed in his home while he was in prison for that conviction in the US. And just went, yeah, that's fine. It's worth the risk. How's that risk working out for you now, Prime Minister? I would suggest to you that was a very poor risk, and not with hindsight, because we were all telling you at the time, back in December 2024, when you appointed him, this was a really bad idea. And lots of people on your own side told you it was a bad idea, but you didn't listen to any of them, did you? Well, chickens are coming home to roost. It now looks like big question marks over the future of the Prime Minister, the future, of course, of his Chief of Staff. I don't see how he can get rid of the Chief of Staff without him going as well. Backbenchers up in arms, unable to push through pretty much any measure in Parliament, despite having about 400 MPs and ostensibly a working majority of 160. Still can't get anything through that he wants to get through Parliament. He is a lame duck Prime Minister. 18 months after winning one of the biggest general election victories this country has ever seen. This is an extraordinary state of affairs. And certainly the Deputy Prime Minister, who was ousted for not paying her full taxes, her stamp duty, when she was Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, is, it turns out, the person putting the knife in the front, not even the back, judging by events in Parliament yesterday. We've got lots to talk about. I cannot wait to get to it with all of my top guests, and I cannot wait to hear from you as well. In particular, I want to hear from you about the Prime Minister admitting yesterday that he did know that Mandelson had stayed friends with Jeffrey Epstein after he was a convicted paedophile at the time when he appointed him as our ambassador to the United States. I want to know, can Keir Starmer survive this? Love to hear your thoughts. I think you'll probably think he shouldn't, but can he? Realistically, can he? Give us a call on 0344 499 1000. Text on 87222. Get in touch on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. And as you well know now, text costs one standard network rate message. We're also going to be talking about the Prime Minister. Well, he's out and about today. There'll be some Q&As with journalists after a speech he's giving at 11 o'clock about something to do with unity. And an announcement of some 800 million quid for various areas. I mean, it's money down the back of the sofa for government spending. It really is. But we'll be talking about that. Also, of course, the latest on Andrew. And, of course, that infamous photo of Andrew with Virginia Giuffre with Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell, in documents released in those Epstein files, blatantly, openly admits that was a genuine photo. But, hey, we knew all that already. But basically, I don't think there's a single thing that Andrew said in that interview on Newsnight, not one word, other than, yes, I'm Prince Andrew. And even that's not true anymore. He's not a prince anymore. That was actually verifiably true. Also going to be talking about Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, yesterday, admitting that she won't guarantee fewer small boat crossings. Oh, and illegal migrants are going to be banned from taking taxis, sometimes costing hundreds of pounds for medical appointments. I mean, that's being a passenger. They're probably all driving the taxis. Who are we kidding? Anyway, all that coming up. Want to hear from you. So much to talk about. Delighted to say, joining me, I always say this on a Thursday, Philip Ingram, former Senior Military Intelligence Officer. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. I hear we're talking about knitting patterns in number 10 Downing Street.
Yeah, knitting pattern, yeah. I mean, genuinely, this is always what I love, all our regular friends in the studio. But you're always so helpful and useful when we're talking about what goes on behind the scenes. I want to start with, because I think this clip is just extraordinary. Yesterday, this was the moment, we had it live here on Talk yesterday during PMQs. We always take the exchanges between the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition live, where he was asked a very straightforward, specific question from Kemi Badenoch, and he gave an unusually straightforward and specific answer. And just hear the reaction from everyone else when he did.
Can the Prime Minister tell us, did the official security vetting he received mention Mandelson's ongoing relationship with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein?
So clear. Prime Minister.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, hear that noise. That was a bit of a aha moment, wasn't it? Because he's always said, if I'd known then what I know now, back in December 24, when I appointed Mandelson, I would never have appointed him. He lied to me. It's all awful. I'm the victim here, sort of nonsense, you know. But he absolutely, we know, knew enough in December 2024, when Mandelson was appointed as our man in Washington, not to have appointed him.
The vetting process for that post is enormous. If a normal diplomat, civil servant was being put into it, they have to pass enhanced developed vetting, which literally goes into every minute detail. They also
when you say minute, are we talking they look through your bank statements?
Oh, they look through your bank statements, they talk to your friends, they talk to your friends' friends, they talk to your family, they look through your family's bank statements, they look through any associates you've got, they look through your social media, they will look through anything and everything that is in the public domain. They'll also look through things that are not in the public domain and work their way through your MI5 reports, your tax records and everything else. They're looking for anything that could put you in a position that could compromise you.
So you say that you could be blackmailed, or that you could be
they then interview you and compare what you say with what they know to be true, and they'll have clearly briefed the Prime Minister that what's going on.
And Peter Mandelson would have sat in a room with people asking him those questions as part of that vetting.
He should have. He should have
this
done.
Is it. We know from Yvette Cooper that the full vetting was not carried out before he was appointed.
Yeah. And this is where we've got two-tier activity yet again, because a civil servant would not have been allowed to take up the post until they passed that. And there's another level of vetting. That's an extremely high level of vetting, but there's another even higher level of vetting. They have to get through several of those. There's US vetting for TK clearance, which is a special intelligence compartment, and there's other compartments that I can't mention that he'd have had to get cleared through. And all of that should have happened before he was appointed. It clearly didn't. And the Cabinet Office controls the vetting process, and this is where Morgan McSweeney in the Cabinet Office, as the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff and coordinating all the activity in there, is central to bypassing the process and telling Keir Starmer that this risk is worth taking.
Well, exactly. But this is extraordinary. We know that Mandelson was the sort of the mentor of Morgan McSweeney, the Prime Minister's, Chief of Staff. Now, it wasn't then, but the man who was, everyone said, this is the man who's orchestrated this fantastic election victory.
I'll be all right, Gov.
I tell you who orchestrated that election victory. That was Nigel Farage and Rishi Sunak, by basically Tories being so hopeless and Reform opposing a challenge. It was very little. I mean, the Monster Raving Looting Party could have won that election if they'd stood enough candidates, for goodness sake, as the alternative. But this is the thing. It doesn't appear that enough was done. And it does appear, again, this is the Prime Minister. He's bleated on about, the grown-ups back in the room, about morality and integrity, and obsessed, I'm a man, I do the process, loves law, but also he's gone on and on about wanting to tackle violence against women and girls. Had to be dragged kicking and screaming to a public inquiry about the grooming gangs, called everyone who was calling for that jumping on the far right bandwagon. And he's now there he is saying he's absolutely fine with somebody, because he's a great, arch, manipulator and arch tactician, apparently. Again, I don't think that Mandelson is as clever as everyone thinks he is, because he keeps getting caught and clever people don't get caught 3 times, is that it was worth the fact that he hired an apologist for a paedophile, a convicted paedophile, the friend and apologist of a convicted paedophile, even though he knew that. And even though he claims he cares about violence against women and girls, I'm pretty sure that some of the worst violence against women and girls is rich, powerful men grooming them hurting. These girls weren't living the lap of luxury. You've got to read some of the testimony, how they were threatened when they tried to leave. They feared for their lives. Some of them changed their identities. They were terrified of this man, and they were basically put out for being gang raped by other rich, powerful men. I'm sorry, he's a liar. I mean, there's not just one liar. It's not just Mandelson. It's Keir Starmer. Because if you care about these things, you don't appoint an apologist for a paedophile.
Well, he broke the very basic process that was in there, so he doesn't care about process. And the other thing is, the Epstein files were put together by US law enforcement long before Keir Starmer came into power. Therefore, any details as Mandelson was being appointed to the ambassador, US law enforcement, our agencies in the United States liaising would have said, is there anything on your files that we need to be aware of? And they would have made them aware of what's going on. So all of this where it's come out now that he has allegedly leaked.
I think they knew everything.
They knew everything. And Starmer will have known everything.
And if they didn't know everything, it's because they literally went, no, don't tell me. Fingers in the ears, don't tell me. Well, I'm sorry, that's not sodding good enough. And bearing in mind, I argued at the time, when we had a bit of a row with Adam Bolton. If you haven't seen that, go to my YouTube page, Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. You'll enjoy it. But he's been a massive defender of Peter Mandelson. Yes, he's done wrong, blah, 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 but, with hindsight. No, we don't need hindsight. At the time, I said his business links with China alone made him too big a security risk.
The last time that we had a special advisor working in the Cabinet Office, filtering the information that's coming in that goes to the Prime Minister, and this is in defence of Keir Starmer, that goes to the Prime Minister for him to make a decision, was Alistair Campbell and Tony Blair and the dodgy dossier. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, look, I think it was extraordinary yesterday that it was the Labour backbenchers who basically weren't going to allow the Prime Minister and do not clearly trust the Prime Minister. They openly said so. They don't trust the Downing Street office, the Cabinet Secretary, the Chief of Staff, or anybody to put all of the information into the public domain about who knew what when before this appointment, and what was said to the Prime Minister, etc., by him and by Mandelson. Because Mandelson going, I was lied to the countryside. That's not going to wash people. People were very unimpressed with that, and the fact that his own backbenchers, including, by the way, one Angela Rayner, former Deputy Prime Minister of this parish, stuck the knife in. To the front, not the back, basically saying, this should be decided. The documents, what's going to be decided, what is and what is not going to be damaging to national security and can't go in the public domain, should be decided by the Intelligence and Security Committee. Now, this is a crossbench committee of very trusted MPs who've got full security clearance to look at this stuff and can be trusted on this. But the fact that backbench Labour MPs, who are very tribal, would trust some Tory MPs, former cabinet ministers sit on that committee, they would trust them more than they would trust their own Prime Minister. I think that's very, very telling. How much damage is do you think he survives? Prime Minister's going to be speaking at 11. Oh, by the way, Nigel Farage is already speaking. He's in Wales. We expect he's going to announce the new Welsh leader of reform, and we'll bring you that when we get it. But lots of speeches. Kemi Badenoch speaking as well today. But everyone's very busy on a Thursday morning. But do you think the Prime Minister can survive this, whether it's today, tomorrow, next week,
the Prime Minister's lost the confidence of the country. The Prime Minister has now lost the confidence of his backbenchers. The Prime Minister's lost the confidence of many of his frontbenchers, because they will be denying any knowledge of this beforehand.
They're having to go out on the media round and say this nonsense.
And therefore, I do not see how the Prime Minister can survive this. And actually, if he doesn't make a decision to go quickly, he's making the damage last longer.
But they always do that.
Oh, yeah,
they always do that. There's no question at all. Andrew, also, interestingly, in the news, apparently there's been a strike among the Sandringham servants. Staff told they can reject working for the former prince as he's moved on to the Norfolk estate. You have a theory about this story, because it's on at least one of the front pages. Where's this story come from, do you reckon?
Look, squirrel.
Oh, that scared the life out of me.
And that's what it is. It's it is almost certainly a campaign designed to try and distract from what's going on with the Prime Minister. Who can we get?
Let's talk about Andrew instead.
Let's put Prince Andrew or the former Prince Andrew out there and start putting it out over the headlines. People will talk about it because it's him.
It's not going to work.
And it's all
what's interesting also, what has emerged in the Epstein files, but Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein apparently asked exotic dancers for a threesome.
So what?
I mean, yeah.
So what?
Well, exactly. You know,
all the
single
sleaze
men,
is in there.
They can do, yeah. But also, what's interesting, and not that we didn't already know this, but the infamous picture of Andrew with his arm around Virginia Giuffre when she was 17, along with Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell in a document where she's suggesting a first draft of an affidavit she was going to write, basically to defend Andrew after these accusations that he had sex with her. And she said she was trafficked by Andrew to have sex with Andrew by Epstein, to have sex with Andrew on 3 occasions. The basic, you know, she's completely and utterly verifying that this is a completely legitimate photograph. Now, Andrew's team spent years, I think to this day, they've still said they think it's a fake photograph. It ain't. It's true. Yeah. It's real. Which makes you think even more. Or does he just randomly have photos in his mates' flats with 17-year-old girls who then later go on to accuse him of having sex with them?
He's just a delusional individual, and he's a useful scapegoat to try and get some headlines that aren't criticising Keir Starmer, the current government, and calling for them to I'm always amazed when you see these polls. I mean Keir Starmer's the most unpopular Prime Minister ever, according to the polls. And when they did the polls of the royals and who's got a positive and negative view, there are still something like 5% of the population who have a positive view of Andrew. I mean, how? I mean, what would give you a negative view of him? Well, no, but the positive, you know, it's Keir Starmer, it's Morgan Sweeney, it's all the comms teams and all the rest of it, because their positive view is he gives us an excuse to try and distract from what's going on elsewhere. So, you know, that's all it's about.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's also talk about something else. We have to be very careful here, and I'm going to explain this. This is going to be really painful for everyone. Palestine Action. Activists from Palestine Action had faced various charges in court, and there's been ongoing court cases. There are other ongoing court cases as well. They yesterday, either there were no verdicts recorded, no verdict agreed, or were cleared of charges in relation to the storming of an Israeli-linked weapons factory here in the UK by activists. I mean, the stuff that's all clearly in the public domain already, wearing red jumpsuits. I think they had red paint with them, and carrying sledgehammers. Now, we'll all have seen a lot of the videos of this. We'll all have seen a lot of information about this. They were found not guilty of what was, aggravated burglary, because they were charged with criminal damage, violent disorder. The jury reached partial or no verdicts on those counts, so there could be a retrial, but they were cleared of aggravated burglary. Now, we'll all have seen a lot of videos on this. There was 36 hours of deliberation. We're going to be talking to a lawyer about this later. You can't message in on this. We can't put calls on air about this, I'm afraid. You'll understand why, because if they do go for a retrial, which is very likely when there has been a no verdict reached with such serious charges, that we don't want to prejudice any future trial. We would be in contempt of court if we did so, even though that decision has not yet been made, which I think a lot of people, including me, find very frustrating. But we obviously have to, abide by the law and do so. But I think there are an awful lot of people who are, let's say, confused about why lots of politicians, Jeremy Corbyn, John McDonnell and Jack Palahniuk, very relevant politician, leader of the Green Party, have celebrated this victory, they've called it, and a victory for civil liberties, as a lot of them are calling it, in terms of those who have been found not guilty on this particular charge. A lot of people are querying how juries, when they see the evidence before them, come to certain conclusions. Your thoughts on this within boundaries. You can understand how difficult this is legally to talk about, because we cannot comment on the individual case, but because we don't want to prejudice any possible future trial.
On the surface of it, it is very difficult to see. And we haven't been through the trial, so we don't know what was presented to the jury. It's very difficult to see how the jury came up with that conclusion. there was the not guilty verdicts against the individuals that had been accused. But at the same time, our judicial system came up with a guilty verdict for Lucy Connolly, she pleaded guilty, but there weren't people turning around saying, don't plead guilty because we'll put you through a jury trial and we can get you off in a similar way. And she serves time in prison for sending a tweet. And what we have seen superficially from what's been in the press rather than knowing what has been presented in court, there seems to be something that has got different question marks around it. This is where I think to bring a fairness in, to try and stop the debate, to try and ensure that there isn't prejudice in what's going on, the court transcript should be published.
But again, we see whether there's a retrial. Indeed, we're going to be talking about this with a leading barrister later in the show, and talk about the implications of that. But also, you mentioned Lucy Connolly, fascinating. That racial hatred charge that was brought against her for that tweet. And again,
yes.
and again, most of the reporting did not have all the full wording of the tweet. Again, I've apologised to her personally because I feel, I believed a lot of the reporting because I wasn't following every single individual case for goodness sake. Because I've got a job, but basically it was fast-tracked. It was given the OK to be fast-tracked with pushing for a prison sentence by who? The Attorney General, Lord Herber. What I don't understand is we are constantly told by the government there's nothing we can do. We can't stop, for instance, pro-Palestinian marches. The police get to do what they want to do, whether they can't stop. It's not up to them whether, Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from Israel can turn up to Birmingham to watch a match against Aston Villa. This is all up to the police. Oh, but we're going to tell the police, and the CPS to arrest and fast track and bring charges and push for prison sentence. Sorry, are these independent bodies or aren't they? We need to know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Lucy Connolly, that's for sure. Can't take calls, I'm afraid, on the Palestine Action case. We'll talk a bit detail more about why that is later in the show. Love to hear your thoughts, though, on the Prime Minister. Can he survive this after he admitted, I think to everyone's surprise yesterday, what we already knew was true, that he already knew that Mandelson, the man he appointed in December 2024 to be our man in Washington, to be the most senior diplomat representing this country with our closest ally, that he knew that he was had stayed friends, stayed mates, big pals with Jeffrey Epstein long after he was a convicted paedophile. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. 0344 499 1000. Also breaking news from Wales at that rally via reform in Wales. Nigel Farage has announced the former Conservative politician James Evans as the new leader of Reform UK in Wales. It's another defection because he's a Senate member. He was a Conservative. He was formerly the Welsh Shadow Health Secretary until his sacking by the Tories 2 weeks ago. And now he's crossed the floor and he is now going to be the leader of the Welsh Labour Reform Party in Wales. 10:24 is the time. This is Talk.
and welcome to Talk Down the Local. Tonight, we're at McCafferty's in Epsom in Surrey.
Raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of this desperation. I think it's almost a plea for help.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits, and that's about it. Actually, I quite like Suits.
People coming to the pub and drinking 0% alcoholic drinks, they're still coming to the pub and doing trade.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going, but I have 0% beers, and I feel
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back. 10:28 is the time. Well, what a surprise. A full switchboard of calls coming in on whether the Prime Minister can actually survive this scandal involving Mandelson and Epstein. You know, could have been a story all about, you know, a scandal involving a former Labour cabinet minister, a former trade commissioner of the EU. Nothing to do with Keir Starmer long before his time. It's a terrible shame. No, let's all move on. But no, he made it his problem. That's how bad at doing the job of being a politician Keir Starmer is. But can he survive this? After admitting yesterday at PMQs, he did know. He did know that Jeffrey Epstein was still in contact, was still friends with Mandelson was still friends with Jeffrey Epstein after he'd been a convicted paedophile. Well, let's take your calls now, 0344 499 1000. Let's go to Matthew, who is in Warrington. Hello, Matthew.
Hello, Julia. Great to see you again.
Great to see you. What do you want to say, my love?
Yesterday, when them 3 words come out,
yeah,
yes, I did,
yeah,
and that gasp,
wasn't it?
It was truly, truly biblical. It was like being in the theatre and they named the murderer and he went, oh.
I know.
And you could just see this image of the Grim Reaper sliding into the Houses of Parliament, opening his gown and wrapping it round Starmer, going, your time is done, sir. You're coming with me. Yeah. And now you can see the I can't wait for the next couple of weeks. I just can't wait. It's just, I said that this is going to happen. This is his nail in his coffin. You know, the only thing worries me, if Ed Millipede gets in, are we going to have a Liz Truss moment? Are the banks going to panic?
Oh,
he's an absolute
short answer,
lunatic.
Yes. I mean, this is the thing. I've been saying this for ages. Like, you know, I mean, here's the thing. Is it in the interest of either Kemi Badenoch for the Tories or Nigel Farage for the Reform Party for this for them to lose Keir Starmer? He's toast in the polls. The voters hate him, Labour and non-Labour alike. His MPs don't trust him. He can't get anything through. Is there an argument to try and have him stagger on rather than put the knife in? Now, the interest of putting the knife in, you get your Angela Rayners, your Andy Burnhams, although he doesn't want it yet because he's not back in Parliament, the Wes Streetings, the Ed Miliband's. It's in their interest, but it's definitely not in the interest of the country, and I don't think it's in the interest of the opposition parties either.
Well, the thing is, the problem with Reform is they're not quite ready yet for a general election, and no. They're getting there.
Oh, but a Prime Minister falling wouldn't mean a general election, not in our system.
But if the banks pull the plug on the borrowing of the money, then they've got no choice, which I think will happen. I think that's the only way it's going to be. Like I said to you the other day, it's going to be like a hung parliament where we're just going to have infighting and they're just going to be squabbling between themselves for the next 3 years and spending money silly that we haven't got, which we've been doing anyway, but it'll be a million times worse. The Covenant will be in no man's land for at least 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I said on the night of the election, I've been sitting here at 10 p.m, we knew it was going to be a massive Labour majority, and you think, everyone's going, he's going to be in power for a generation. Yeah, right. People said that about Boris Johnson. 2 years later, he was out. I said, we need them to do well because our country needs a government that can function and can manage the country. And
they did completely the opposite.
I mean, I'm gobsmacked by how bad they are. Gobsmacked.
Oh, they were terrible. This is the worst government we've ever had in my lifetime. I'm 55 years of age. Yeah. And
I agree with you.
It's absolutely terrible. We're an embarrassment to the world. He's killed this country. That Labour Party has absolutely annihilated us. Even the unions have had enough of them.
Yeah, I know. That's the extraordinary. And his backbenchers. Matthew, great call. Thank you very much. I think you speak for the country. I really do. Nodding away there from Philip Ingram. Paul is in Brighton. Paul, hello. What do you want to say?
Yeah, hi, Julia. I echo exactly what the last caller just said, but I had to laugh a few moments ago when you said that the monster raving loony party could have won the election if they'd have fielded enough candidates. Well, I don't know if you've noticed, Julia, but they have actually won the election. It's called the Labour Party. You've got mad Ed Miliband and his zero nonsense. Yep. You've got mad Rachel Reeves with her killing of the economy and business. You've got mad Angela Rayner and an employment bill. You've got mad Yvette Cooper and the Chagos, selling off all of it. Chagos Islands. Mad Peter Kyle the business secretary who's never run a business in his life. And then you've got Mahmood, who's mad Mahmood. She's not stopping the boats. Yep. I mean, they're all crazy. So, in my opinion, let's just resurrect Lord Such and he can be the Prime Minister.
Let's just have done with it all. We may as well, frankly. Paul, thank you very much. 2 great calls. Lots more coming up. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. 10:33 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking to your favourite of mine, former Labour Party, definitely not the Labour Party anymore, spokesman, James Mathewson. What does he make of it all? And looking from a very different perspective from me and I think many of you, does he think the Prime Minister will survive? That's up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good morning. Welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the home of common sense. 10:35 is the time. I can't make any common sense out of this. We were told just a few moments ago that Nigel Farage had announced that James Evans was going to be the new Welsh leader of the Reform Party. Apparently, no, he's not. He's just a defector, having basically been ousted from the Tory party. Along with, I think this is when we saw John Robert Jenrick was ousted and quite a few other members for plotting. Nigel Farage has just announced that Dan Thomas is the new Welsh Reform UK leader instead, not James Evans. So we'll try and keep up with all of that, get you the latest on that in just a couple of moments. Right now, let's go to our next guest. He's former Labour Party spokesman and commentator, James Mathewson. Good morning to you, James. Welcome to the show. Oh, I'm so sorry. We seem to have just lost him. I don't know what's going on with all these texts at the moment. While we get him up, Philip Ingram is still with me, former senior military intelligence officer. I mean, it is interesting, those calls we've had. People just, I mean, everyone is just like, for goodness sake, this is just an absolute joke. What's going on with the Prime Minister and with Epstein? I mean, I know Mandelson. You think he's definitely toast?
He's lost credibility. He's lost credibility with everyone that's got any influence with him. His party. his cabinet, but more importantly, the people.
Yeah, well, indeed. We've got James Mathewson back on the line. Good morning to you, James.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. All right, but look, we've all been talking about whether or not the Prime Minister survives this. I don't think anyone thinks Morgan McSweeney, as Chief of Staff, survives this scandal, basically this decision to point Peter Mandelson as our man in Washington when he, as he admitted in PMQs, and as we already knew, that he was still friends with the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein for many years after he had actually already been convicted back in 2008 and was in prison. In fact, had stayed at his home in New York in 2009. While Jeffrey Epstein was still behind bars, for goodness sake. Do you think the Prime Minister survives?
I think, like you, I don't think he should, by the way. That's my first comment. He shouldn't survive this, but I think he will, because I don't see the opportunity for anyone getting rid of him. I don't see the ambition for anyone wanting to replace him in this moment, even in the Labour Party. And I don't see the mechanism for that to happen either. The only person really who would mount a challenge right now would be somebody like Wes Streeting. And Wes Streeting would be very much a continuation of Keir Starmer. So, I mean, I don't see that kind of appetite.
You didn't see Angela Rayner. I mean, she was there yesterday. She put the knife in the front, not even in the back, by basically leading a lot of backbenchers saying, basically, we don't trust either the Prime Minister, his Chief of Staff or the Cabinet Secretary, anyone working in Number 10, to be independently looking at what is and what is not safe to be put in the public domain and not a national security risk about what they knew when about Peter Mandelson's links with Jeffrey Epstein. They put it to an independent cross-party committee. I mean, that tells you quite a lot. She is trying to put the boot in.
Oh, absolutely. But she's doing it very publicly. And if she was on manoeuvres to try and replace him, she wouldn't be doing it publicly. It would be private. And the problem here is Morgan McSweeney, right? I mean, what on earth does Morgan McSweeney have on Keir Starmer? This is what I can't understand, because everybody who I speak to for the past, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years, has said, oh, this is it for McSweeney. It's over. You know, every single time something happens, well, every time it's a U-turn, every time it's the winter fuel allowance stuff, it's always McSweeney who's been pushing in that direction. But Starmer doesn't have the political kind of currency or credibility to get rid of him. Because really what happened was, and a lot of people don't understand this, was McSweeney created the project to get Labour back into power. He had the idea for it. He had the idea for what the campaign would look like. All of this.
He created him. Keir Starmer is a Morgan McSweeney creation.
Yeah, he just didn't have the face. He just needed someone to kind of be the face of it. So he met with Keir Starmer, I believe, in his kitchen, and Starmer said, yeah, I'll do it. It'll be me. So they're very much wedded together, and their futures are. So I think Starmer has always viewed it as if McSweeney goes, then it's probably over for him. And I mean, fair enough. That's going to be both. But
again, what essentially, I mean, I was a journalist for many years in the lobby, and all those weeks we'd have to Tony Blair, you know, all these years he was in power. Tony Blair, like, this is the toughest week of his premiership. Is he on the ropes? Will he survive? And every single time he did. He was a consummate politician. He was incredibly clever. He thinks on his feet, very charming, didn't make enemies, blah, blah, blah. He did all he knew, and he still had enough appeal on the doorstep to make. He won 3 elections, at the end of the day. But when you look at Keir Starmer, he simply isn't. He's not clever enough. He's not sharp enough. He hasn't got the political acumen, has he? He hasn't to dance around these things.
Yeah, he's not a politician. You know, he is a bureaucrat. He's very much a middle manager type. You know, he can run departments. He can keep things on the straight and narrow if you want him to. But politicians need to be able to adapt to these very difficult times. They need to be able to thrive under these kind of pressured environments when the walls are closing in and no one seems to be there for you. But I don't think Keir Starmer's that kind of guy. I think really there would reach a point where he would just be sick of it and he would want to go. But I don't think that point is yet. I'll be totally honest. I don't think it's yet. But I do have to say, Julia, again, because a lot of your viewers are probably agreeing with me right now, and I don't like that to be the case for too long. So I'll have to throw a cat among the pigeons and say, if you are somebody who thinks that Keir Starmer should resign, over the Epstein files, that's totally fine. But you don't think that Donald Trump should, then you need your head checking. Because Donald Trump's name appears in the Epstein files more than Harry Potter's name appears in the Harry Potter books. Yep. More than Jesus' name appears in the Bible. You can't possibly think that this is, as you should, hold Mandelson to account and all those around him.
Yeah.
That the leader of the free world and all of the redactions, all of the way that they've handled this should be allowed to continue. It's disgraceful.
What do you think is going to happen? How will this happen? Because often we think, and again, you sort of think about with Boris Johnson, how he was ousted. And again, a lot of it was actually over him attempting to protect, a colleague and stop him from being disciplined in the Commons. And then people go, no, this is wrong. Don't lead us up a hill like this. It is often, Prime Ministers often fall over sort of tiny little nitty-gritty things. Often again, it's a silly little lie. It's not the big crime. I mean, we're not accusing the Prime Minister of being mates with a convicted paedophile, or of or even of Mandelson, certainly on the evidence we know to date, of being a paedophile himself. None of these allegations are being made. Okay, what we're talking about is someone appointing someone who was friends with somebody who did bad things. That's what we are talking about judgment. So do you think that alone is enough to bring down a Prime Minister? That level of poor judgment on one appointment? Or is it is it all the U-turns? Is it the popularity ratings? Is it everything else?
It's the collectiveness of it all. So I like to think of it like China teacups, right? Being stacked on top of one another. How many can the Labour Party balance? How many of the backbenchers willing to juggle to try and keep it going? And right now, there has been no reprieve. I mean, you know yourself from the coverage that you've provided of this government, there has been no reprieve. There hasn't been a week where there hasn't been some kind of scandal or U-turn or bad news story. And at some point when you are in this perpetual doom loop, how do you get out of it? I mean, there's been so many opportunities I've seen to be like, sack McSweeney, set a new direction, really take control of the helm. None of that has happened.
Yeah.
They've just continued to go on this path to nowhere. And that's the saddest part of it all, Julia. There is nothing driving the direction. And it makes me absolutely furious because in this political climate right now, where you've got the rise of populism, you've got the rise of Nigel Farage, Donald Trump's best mate, there should
So
be
you say that like it's an obviously bad thing. I love I'm always fascinated by the rise of populism. What do you mean by populism? A politician who does or says he's going to do what voters say they want?
No, demagoguery. It's about using the
being
public.
A popular politician.
Not popular, populist, and there is a difference.
Yeah, I know. And what do you mean by that?
I mean,
because you clearly mean it as an insult. I'm fascinated to know what you mean by it.
Well, it's people who say things that they're not going to deliver. It's people who will use.
That's Keir Starmer. That's not a populist.
Well, no, but Keir Starmer doesn't even say things that are inspiring.
He said he's going to do things. No, but he says he's going to do things, and
it's
then
about blaming. It's about blaming other problems, right? It's the likes of. Here's the prime example for you right now. It's the Nigel Farages of the world showing up and saying immigration's the cause of all of your woes.
Don't
it's
think
the
he has
cause
said
of
that.
all your problems.
Don't think he's ever said that.
Nigel Farage.
I don't think he's ever said that in public or in
private.
private.
He's worried about the safety of women and girls. But
so is Keir Starmer, apparently.
His best mate, Donald Trump, right, is throughout the Epstein files, the redactions that are there. You've got men in those files calling for little girls to be tortured and asking about the torture parties that are taking place. And those names are redacted. And the US government's protecting them. If anybody had a spine, if anybody cared about women and girls and violence against women and girls, they would be outraged by that. But no,
I agree with you on that. Hey, listen, you'll never find me defending Donald Trump's character ever. I'm on record on that one. Fascinating to talk to you, James Matthews, and thank you for joining us. Former Labour Party spokesman, very much commentator now, very much not a Labour Party, not even a member anymore. Philip Ingram, I mean, he's basically saying, look, he's despairing as someone. He's to the left of Keir Starmer. There's no doubt at all that if Keir Starmer goes, we are going to be looking at someone definitely further to the left of Keir Starmer.
Oh, very much so. And there isn't someone who's got any ability. Not that Keir Starmer's got any ability. What disappointed me with James there was a deflection in that the US is hiding lots of stuff and everything else. Yes, the US is hiding lots of stuff, but the story isn't about US politics at the minute. It isn't about the detail in the Epstein files at the minute. The story is about our Prime Minister misleading the country in the appointment of the representative of this country to our most important ally, not what our important ally has done.
Absolutely. Fascinating. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. Lots more calls coming in, 0344 499 1000. We're going to talk to Angela Levin, royal biographer, about what she makes of the latest Epstein files relation to Andrew, and a strike at Sandringham by staff who don't want anything to do with this guy. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well, 0344 499 1000. And just to reiterate, the leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage, at a rally in Wales, has announced the new leader of Reform UK in Wales, and that is Dan Thomas. He born and bred in Wales, but left to go and work in London, and he actually ended up being a councillor and leader of Barnet Council in North London for a few years before returning to Wales. But he is going to be the new leader of Reform UK in Wales. Of course, we've got those upcoming Senate elections in May in Wales, Scotland, and of course much of the English councils as well. Well, the ones that are allowed to have an election anyway. You remember that story. Anyway, all coming up. This is Talk.
Hello and welcome to Talk Down the Local.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:50 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Philip Ingram's still with me. Very interesting, Philip Ingram. You already just said in the first hour of the show, the first few minutes of the show, that you believe the big stories today about Andrew and about staff at Sandringham apparently basically going on strike, saying we won't work for this guy because of his links with Epstein, all the things we know about him, that these are stories that are basically put out to try and get us to stop talking about the Prime Minister and Mandelson.
Yep. Oh, and we'll see lots of it over the next few days, as they try to deflect it. Standard deflection tactics.
Put the onus on the man we already all hate.
Yep.
OK, well, let's talk about this with royal commentator Angela Levin, who joins us now. Good morning to you, Angela.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. I mean, again, there are a number of stories about Andrew, a lot going around. I mean, the plot is thickening because First of all, let's talk about him leaving on Monday night, apparently in the dead of night, from Royal Lodge in Windsor, where he can be photographed riding a horse or driving a car, apparently waving at people. Apparently people want to be waved at by him. But then he's been basically exiled off to Norfolk in a house to wait for his other house to be renovated. It's not such a bad life, all still paid for by his brother, the King. But it turns out the staff aren't happy.
No, they're not. And they've been told that if they feel uncomfortable by working with him or for him, they don't have to. So this is something that is very interesting to do to staff. I think some of them are doing it and some of them aren't. So, you know, he wouldn't have any staff if everybody wanted to walk off. So they are actually giving this so that they can get other people in.
Yeah, it's very interesting that they're in a position to do that. I mean, you know...
Yeah, but you see, he can't do anything. He's never even cooked an egg or actually made his own tea. He's always had someone, and he's got quite a few chefs who are looking after him now. So if they don't want to do that, he'll be off.
That'll be good. I mean, you know, he can go on Ozempic. He can lose get a little bit trimmer. You know, he may need that to run away from all the lawsuits. So more allegations are coming forward about, you know, there's this nasty, you know, Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein apparently asked an exotic dancer for a threesome, according to some of these files. The allegations that the police say they're looking into this, that a second woman, I think there's also some talk about a third, has claimed to have been basically, you know, sent to London to have, sent to England to have sex with Andrew. And of course, the latest overnight, that infamous picture, of course, of Prince Andrew, as he then was, with his arm around Virginia Giuffre when she was just 17. Ghislaine Maxwell there, it's supposed to be taking place in Ghislaine Maxwell's Mews house in London, ahead of when basically Virginia Giuffre said she was basically told you're to have sex with Andrew. Led to the whole Newsnight interview. I was in the Pizza Express in Woking. I couldn't have been dancing with her and sweating because I couldn't sweat at the time. All this nonsense. Turns out all completely untrue, because there's a document in there written by Ghislaine Maxwell that basically confirms the photo was real and it was taken in her home.
Yes, but she does say as well that there's no knowledge of her having any sexual behaviour.
Except, of course, Virginia Giuffre claimed, sadly now dead, took her own life, that she's claimed, has she not, that, you know, that she told, she was congratulated, you know, praised by Ghislaine afterwards. Well done, the prince was very happy.
Yes, I mean, I'm just telling you what she said. I don't know that you can listen to what she said anyway, stating for the record as, you know, but I don't think that you can actually listen to her. She's waited a long time. They found her email very recently. The Mail did that. And that's what they've got inside. But, you know, you get the feeling that you can't trust anybody saying anything about this disgusting behaviour of anyone.
And that's the thing.
I just had an idea.
Please do.
You see, that Abu Dhabi, one of the Sheikh Mohammed there, has said that he would like Andrew to go and live there.
He's welcome to him.
It was a very good idea.
Yeah, welcome to him. I think the worry, of course, of him going off doing that, of course, the lifestyle he'd be given is what, you know, what would he be, you know, found doing there? I mean, goodness me, there'll no doubt be, you know, there'll be people taking, you know, there'll be people taking photographs of him doing God knows what. Do you think there's worse to come? Because basically everything that both Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, his ex-wife, have said in public, since all of this affair has ever occurred, has ever come to light, has been proven to be completely and utterly untrue. Oh, I had no contact with him. I was barely having any contact. I broke it off. It's all nonsense. They both carried on. They were money grubbing. They wanted the free business class flights. They wanted the stay in his home, and they were asking him for money, and they were all over him. I mean, just literally just like crawling and grovelling and praising him all the time.
Yeah, well, we know that. It's very difficult to understand what is real and what isn't real nowadays. But this woman, a very attractive woman who is a dancer, she was persuaded to have sex with him, so it says. But they said that they would give her $10,000 and they only gave $2,000. So there's a big argument there, which could come up to, you know, to be very, very difficult because, but I could say that it won't be written, will it? It won't be done as a contract, so we don't know. But I think this way of dealing with women, is just so revolting. It's repulsive.
And what was particularly repulsive, was it not, with the fact that Sarah Ferguson took her daughters at 19 and 20 to go and stay with Epstein after he was convicted of soliciting a 14-year-old for prostitution.
Yes. She wanted them to meet him, and afterwards they had what they call a party. Now, I don't like the word. I just think it's revolting. I knew this back a few months, and I thought to myself, why on earth would she take two attractive girls?
I don't think they were his type, to be fair. Looking at all the pictures of the women the girls who he did groom and abuse and rape and traffic, I think those girls were safe. I'm not being rude. I just, he clearly had a type.
Yeah, well, I hope you're right there.
No, but again, but it's disgusting, isn't it? But either way, it's disgusting and repulsive. And I think we do have higher standards from mothers, do we not, than other men involved in this. But this is the thing. I just think there's so much more that's going to come out. More and more people seem to be coming forward.
There's millions of things to come along. So the papers will be full of it for absolutely ages. And the more you read about it, the more sick you feel, actually. It is terrible. And I wonder for myself that he's loved his mother. She loved him, she adored him. But his behaviour throughout his life has not shown any care or attention to women. And
he was raised a prince. I mean, he was just raised, the spare, he had no responsibilities, he was indulged. I mean, he's obviously a narcissist who thinks that he's the centre of the universe and everything should go around him.
Yes, that's true. But he never listens to what anyone is told about anything. He knows everything. And he still carried with him all that he did in the Navy.
Yeah, and also he hilariously was of the view that Newsnight interview was A, a good idea, and B, after he'd done it, that it had gone well.
Yes, that's right. And so he rang his mother and he said, I'm going to show them round the Buckingham Palace because it's done so very well. And you think, where's your judgment? And I think that's right, that he can't understand anything. He can't get to understand what it is that's been so awful, his own behaviour and his manner. And that's actually very important that somebody... OK, they do certain bad things. I'm not saying that he's done so many, but the bad things...
I think he probably has.
No, but you just got to learn afterwards that
thick, posh, privileged people never have to learn because mummy pays the people off and he thinks he gets away with it. The question is how much damage this does to the royal family. Although the general view seems to be, the king acted swiftly, brutally, and as he should have done to basically drop the title, shove him out of the house, put him, send him into, exile. It's not, it's not such a bad life, but that he acted rather quicker, certainly, than Keir Starmer did. Anyway, Angela Levin, great to talk to you, world commentator Angela Levin. Really appreciate you joining us. Lots more to come on all of this. Lots more calls from you as well. 0344 499 1000. Whether you want to talk about Andrew, any of the other big stories, but in particular, I want to hear from you. Can Keir Starmer survive this scandal, given that he admitted, he did know all about close links between Jeffrey Epstein and Peter Mandelson when he appointed Mandelson as our man in Washington? This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. We're just approaching 3 minutes past 11. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Thank you so much for your company. Really appreciate you joining me, whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube, or on your connected device. Always fabulous to have your company. If you miss anything from the show, you can always go to my YouTube page called The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe, you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, the Prime Minister, any moment now, is going to be giving a speech all about unity or something, handing out a bit of dosh. It's basically the equivalent of money down the back of the sofa for the government, but he's also going to be facing a question and answer session with journalists. Oh, that might be quite lively. We'll tell you what happens there. Keir Starmer has admitted, of course, at PMQs yesterday that he did know that Mandelson had kept in touch, was still friends with Epstein at the time when he appointed him as our man in Washington. We're also going to talk about this Palestine Action activist cleared over the break-in at an Israeli-owned arms firm, and Lucy Connolly's charge over a racist tweet was back in 2024 was fast-tracked by guess who? Oh, that name just keeps coming up. The Attorney General, Lord Hermer. We'll let you know what Sir Keir Starmer has to say. We had a bit of an advance of his speech, but I mean, suffice to say, it's a lot of the usual nonsense. I imagine he thinks it's another reset. We have had, of course, the leader of Reform UK. He's been out giving a speech as well, a rally in Wales, and he has announced Dan Thomas, who used to be leader of Barnet Council in North London, but Welsh-born and back living in Wales, councillor, who is going to be the leader of the Welsh Reform Party, expecting a speech also from Kemi Badenoch. It's a very busy campaigning day, it would seem. Joining me for all the chat today is Philip Ingram, former senior military intelligence officer. Morning once again to you.
Morning again. Nothing's happening as ever.
Out, yeah, again.
Yeah.
You know, careful what you wish for, quiet times.
I'll just curl up in the corner, just go back to sleep.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just extra. I mean, people are genuinely talking today about this scandal involving the appointment of an ambassador by the Prime Minister. Could be the thing that actually brings Keir Starmer down. Finally, the backbenchers in his party are going, really, he's finally done enough to make you realise how useless he is?
There's a little pattern emerging here, and from an intelligence perspective, whenever you're analysing things, you look for patterns.
Yeah.
And there's a pattern across everything, and the pattern is Starmer, Hermer, McSweeney, Mandelson.
Keeps coming up.
And all of those keep coming up in just about everything. Chego, everything. That same pattern is there. There's something even bigger brewing. Does he survive? Whether it's this week, next month, are they going to hold on to the local elections? I think they're. Well, let's take it back a bit. Let's roll it back a bit, because the question I'm asking our audience is: the Prime Minister admits that he did know that Mandelson had stayed friends with Jeffrey Epstein after he was a convicted paedophile, and that at the time when he appointed him in December 2024 as our man in Washington. So I want to know: can Keir Starmer survive this? Because certainly the backbenchers are not looking like they're willing to suffer any more on his behalf. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate and text cost £1, standard network rate message. But let's have a little listen and watch of the exchange at PMQs yesterday, which I think all of us watching and listening, we had it on the show live, had a bit of a when we actually had a very straight, very specific question from the Tory leader Kemi Badenoch, and then a very unusually straight and specific response from the Prime Minister. But let's also stay and listen to the reaction from the Commons. Have a watch and a listen.
Can the Prime Minister tell us, did the official security vetting he received mention Mandelson's ongoing relationship with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein?
So clear. Prime Minister?
Yes, it did.
Yes, it did. As in, yes, he absolutely had been given information. We now know a bit more detail, don't we, Philip Ingram, about the information he was given. Apparently 2 sides of A4, but a lot of it was kind of Google's. But he absolutely, 100%, we are told, that knew stuff which was already in the public domain. We already knew. It had been published in 2023 that Mandelson had stayed at Epstein's home in 2009. Where was Epstein? Epstein was currently in prison at that time, having pleaded guilty. He pleaded down, being guilty to soliciting a 14-year-old girl for prostitution. Of course, we know from these private messages between Epstein and Mandelson that Mandelson didn't believe that it was true, and he should fight it all the way, etc., etc. But nevertheless, that alone would have said, this guy got poor judgment, we can't possibly make him the ambassador for our country. You talked a bit earlier, and do explain to people who've just tuned in, the level of vetting, not just any ambassador, but the ambassador to Washington, who is going to be at the heart of not just trade talks, he's been in a EU trade commissioner, but security and defence issues at the highest level with our most important economic and security and defence ally.
You get security clearance as a level, developed vetting as the next level, enhanced developed vetting, and then vetting above enhanced developed vetting to let you into compartments. Mandelson will have, or anyone being appointed to that as a civil servant will have had to have that enhanced developed vetting and read into compartments above that, including some American ones.
To see some top secret stuff.
Beyond top secret. This is compartmentalised. It's beyond top secret material. That's
with James Bond territory.
Very sensitive material. And His Majesty's ambassador to the United States has to be cleared to that sort of level. Therefore, Keir Starmer saying that he had two sides of A4 or that coming out and it was all in the public domain and all the rest of it. No, he will have been briefed on a lot of detail that will not and will never get into the public domain.
Would he personally, the Prime Minister, be briefed, or would it go to his staff? Again, it's up to him what he chooses to see.
It'll go to his staff, but if he personally has to make the decision, his staff then have to give him that.
And he would have personally made the decision, because we know. I mean, there are MPs who said they personally, Labour MPs, went into Number 10 to say to the Prime Minister, you shouldn't appoint this man. And again, we had Andrew Bolton on the show yesterday, who's a big friend of Peter Mandelson, and says, yes, what he's done was wrong. But it's all very easy with hindsight. But again, we knew a lot of this stuff was known in 2023, 2024. And as I've pointed out a million times, I thought the fact that he'd been sacked for wrongdoing on 2 occasions previously, yes, he was exonerated in terms of the lack of evidence in the Nduja passport affair. But I'm sorry. I think if I carried out the inquiry, I'm sorry, I don't think he was exonerated. I do not accept the outcome of that particular inquiry. Again, it was another case of, I don't recollect whether or not I made a phone call and what I said in a phone call to a Home Office minister about this billionaire who I was mates with, passport. Were getting his British passport. Put it this way, I mean, he has no recollection of anything. Again, this man virtually has amnesia. I mean, he's in full-on dementia territory, his lack of memory. But the key thing is here is that enough people were warning him, and it was in the papers. People, commentators like me were saying this is a terrible idea. The idea that he wouldn't have gone, I think I probably need to be really sure. And it does sound like that he had a conversation in person or on the telephone with Mandelson, and he says basically Peter Mandelson lied to him personally. But here's the thing, if the security vetting is saying this guy's done this, this and this, and then he says, oh no, I didn't, but we already know he's a proven liar, that's already established. Why would the Prime Minister be allowed to ignore the security vetting? Well,
the Prime Minister is the Prime Minister, and therefore he will be given it as advice and can bypass that advice, and he has to record that. But the thing that I found really telling yesterday, whenever Keir Starmer stood up and said, made that admission that he knew, Keir Starmer is a seasoned barrister. He is a politician of sorts. He's used to giving the minimal amount of information as an answer whenever he's standing up in public. And he does that. And therefore,
I'm going to interrupt you because Keir Starmer's speaking. He's talking about Mandelson. Let's go straight to what the Prime Minister is saying.
For the same reason. Because they believe in service. Because they believe in duty. Because they believe in the public good. But that is not why some people do it. And that is not why Mandelson did it. And that sense of duty only matters if the standards of public life are upheld. And in recent days, serious allegations and serious evidence has emerged concerning Mandelson's conduct, including his relationship with Epstein, a convicted sex offender. It had been publicly known for some time that Mandelson knew Epstein, but none of us knew the depth and the darkness of that relationship. What has come to light has raised serious questions. Information that was not known at the time of his appointment. Before he was appointed ambassador, Mandelson was asked directly about the nature of his relationship with Epstein. He was asked whether he had stayed at Epstein after his conviction. And when, later, further information came to light, he was asked whether he had accepted gifts and hospitality, about whether he had been fully transparent about the relationship. The information now available makes clear that the answers he gave were lies. He portrayed Epstein as someone he barely knew. And when that became clear, and it was not true, I sacked him. Such deceit is incompatible with public service. Let me be clear, no one is above accountability. And no one, however well connected, however experienced, however senior, should hold public office if they cannot meet the basic test of honesty. I also want to address the publication of the information Mandelson provided during the appointment process. I understand the strength of public feeling. I share the anger that people feel when powerful individuals appear to escape scrutiny. And I want to be able to release those documents as quickly as possible. I wanted to release them yesterday, in fact, and to talk about them at Prime Minister's questions. But the police have advised that releasing certain information now could risk prejudicing a future investigation or legal process. And however frustrating from my personal point of view that is, and it is, I will not take any step, however politically tempting, however popular, that risks justice for victims. Because this is not and must never become a political game. The victims of Epstein have lived with trauma that most of us can barely comprehend. And they've had to relive it again and again. They have seen accountability delayed and too often denied. To them, I want to say this. I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you. Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him. And sorry that even now you're forced to watch this story unfold in public once again. But I also want to say this. In this country, we will not look away. We will not shrug our shoulders. And we will not allow the powerful to treat justice as optional. We will pursue the truth. We will uphold the integrity of public life. And we will do everything within our power and in the interests of justice to ensure accountability is delivered. That is what the public expects. That is what the victims deserve. And it is what I will do. Now, I'm here today in Hastings.
Right, well, that was obviously the section of the speech where Keir Starmer wanted to address. I mean, let's face it, the huge herd of elephants in the room, because no one's there to hear about his speech about unity and announcing a cash injection of £800 million to local communities around the country. I'm sorry, they're not. Everyone wanted to hear what he had to say when it came to this extraordinary scandal involving Mandelson and the Prime Minister's decision to appoint him, despite all the evidence that we knew at the time. Now, what was very interesting there, Philip Ingram's face, by the way, absolute picture throughout that. Can we just talk about the tone? Again, he does this in sorrow, not in anger. This tone. This is his tone that he uses when I want you to be believed. He also uses this phrase, "Let me be clear." Whenever he says that, I'm always like, oh, you're about to obfuscate. But he kept talking about the information that's now emerged, information not known at the time of his appointment. Again, some of this stuff was absolutely not known at the time of his appointment. But our point is, enough was known. He said Mandelson was asked directly. It would appear not by... He doesn't say I asked him directly. Mandelson was asked directly. That's lawyer speak, isn't it? Was asked directly about his relationship with Epstein, including had he stayed at Epstein's home. This was something that had already come out in 2023, a report, I think the FT, from JP Morgan. They'd done an internal report that got leaked. Also asked later if he'd accepted any gifts or hospitality from him, which he clearly had, including $75,000, which probably doesn't remember at all. He said, the information is now available, realised that the information that Mandelson had given them was untrue and he was sacked. He's talked about Mandelson's deceit. He said no one is above accountability. I think the Prime Minister may find that that applies to him as well. And he said he also wanted to release a load of the documents in relation to this before PMQs and discuss them at PMQs, but the police have advised it could prejudice any future investigation. Again, the interesting thing is that is an investigation into wrongdoing by Peter Mandelson in terms of it's not illegal to go and stay at your mate's house if he's got a conviction for paedophilia. It would be illegal though if you showed misconduct in public office as a minister and you leaked private correspondence between the Prime Minister as advisors, which could be financially sensitive. But I don't see what the Prime Minister knew or didn't know when he appointed him about his relationship with Mandelson. With Epstein, I don't see at all how that could be part of that investigation. But he says this is not and must never become a political game. I mean, might be a bit too late for that, Prime Minister. But it's interesting you talked about the victims, and I'm sorry what happened to you. I'm sorry so many people with power let you down, and I'm sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him. I know that he and his advisors will think, hope, believe, that's it, end of the matter. I don't think that even begins to cover it. He knew enough not to appoint him, and he did it anyway. Can of worms
being
out
opened.
there. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. He's a barrister. He's Prime Minister. He chooses his words very carefully.
Yeah.
But you're running through all of the thread of that is a complete load of smelly stuff. He's lying to us. He turned around and said he wanted to release all the documents yesterday. Well, the amendment that came out of number 10 that then had to be manually amended, which is highly unusual, did not want to release all of the documents. No. It wanted to keep control of them. His apology to the victims is the thing that really worries me because at the moment it's all about Mandelson's relationship to Epstein, not Mandelson's causing harm to people that are in there outside that relationship.
He played the gay card and he knew nothing about it.
Yeah, and therefore Starmer has just directly linked Mandelson to victims. So
which Mandelson, by the way, in his first interview is all about all of this. Didn't mention. He actually did a second interview, I remember a few weeks ago, basically to say, yes, OK, because he said, I wasn't party to any of this. So,
and therefore there's clearly more that's in there. And then Starmer turned around and said, he's very careful about some information that has come subsequently. Yes, as you said, there will be some new information, but he will have known all of the other stuff in more than enough to turn around and say Mandelson is not suitable for this appointment.
But again, we're into this ridiculous situation. So you've got these reports, you've got these claims that somebody stayed, he stayed at his house and he's still in contact. He, by all accounts, was still in contact, I think, till 2016 with Epstein. Of course, he was arrested in 2019 and died. Some believe officially committed suicide. I don't believe that. I don't think a lot of people believe that. But I doubt Mandelson believes that. Well, he would have known him very well. But again, so a lot of this information was collected, and then you say he or someone else says to Morgan McSweeney, Mandelson's protege, Really? Ask Mandelson, is this true, is this not true? And Mandelson lies. Mandelson lies, as I said, I've said this many times, he lies four times before breakfast. I think he is such a narcissist. I think we are into... I'm no psychotherapist, but same with Epstein. I think we're into basically, we're psychopathy. I can't even say the word psychopathy there. I can't even say it, because literally a psychopath in terms of they don't see anyone else's needs or wants or anything to be any. They are the centre of their universe. And Prince Andrew's the same, the centre of their universe, and everything is about them. They are the sun god. And they don't think about other people's feelings or how things affect them or what other people might want or what their feelings would be. But what's interesting in the last 24 hours is, again, there's so many more of these documents to go through. There are millions of them. And even with the search mechanism, not everything is coming up until later. One of the things that Mandelson said, he had nothing to do with the sexual side of Epstein's life. He was shielded from all of that. And yet, again, there's pictures of him in his tighty-whities with a young woman in a dressing gown. What was that? Who was that young woman? We don't know. Doesn't remember. In Epstein's flat in Paris. But there's also a whole load of exchanges of emails, which are very sexual by nature. With Epstein joking about sex parties, Epstein joking about prostitutes. He was going to see after leaving prison. Although he was out of prison most of the time anyway. Who are we kidding? He literally did about 2 hours a day in prison. He had a absolute joke of a sentence. But also Mandelson joking about, fanciable, people in government and well-hung young men and things. So, the idea that he was completely shielded, that was just a sort of business uptight relationship, absolute nonsense. He's been pictured at all of his homes. He's been pictured again and again, scantily clad, these emails. He was clearly very, very much involved in Epstein's life. And the idea that anybody could be very involved in Epstein's life and not be aware that there was sexual abuse of young girls below the age of consent daily happening. Some of these girls said they were raped 3 times a day, okay? The idea that he was not aware of that is becoming less and less believable.
And the idea that Starmer knew nothing about that is less and less believable. What struck me there was you get in setting people up for, I need to talk to you about some formal things. There's going to be the informal interview and the formal interview. The informal interview is you brief your chief of staff and say, right, counsel them as to what to say. I'm going to ask this question.
That's what they do.
This has to be the answer. I don't want any detailed explanation. Don't want anything else. He just needs to answer it with those words.
If he says no...
Yeah.
But here's the thing, you've got evidence from the security
no.
services saying he did stay at his house. These things are pretty. Let's look at your records on British Airways. Let's look at your, again. You said they would have. They would have. But you said they would have gone through his bank statements.
Oh,
his bank statements, unless these documents are all completely false, we have to give that.
They access them. You have to give permission.
No, unless the stuff we've seen in the Epstein files is completely false. That $75,000 was paid over a few months from Jeffrey Epstein to Peter Mandelson.
But there'll have been other documents in there, and they will access his bank accounts. They'll access his credit cards.
That alone, each individual fact that was already known or would have been known by the security services if they'd done anything other than just sort of looked at Google. In fact, even Googling it would have found every single bit of information. Each individual one would, in normal circumstances, be enough. Raise a big enough red flag that he would stop. It would stop the appointment.
Oh yeah,
am I not right?
It would stop the vetting. You recommend the vetting authorities recommend to the decision makers and say we cannot sign off the vetting on this particular individual. If the decision maker, i.e. the Prime Minister, then goes, I hear what you say, but I'm going to sign it off anyway, then the responsibility is passed on to the Prime Minister. This is a risk process that's passing the risk from the vetting authorities to the decision maker at the top. It's up to them whether they listen to or don't listen to that advice.
Yeah, absolutely extraordinary. Your reaction to that, you've heard what he had to say, the Prime Minister. I think there's going to be a Q&A afterwards with journalists. We'll see what else comes out of it, but he's got his little lawyer form of words. I just don't think it's going to wash with the general public. I don't think it washes with any of it. I think there's going to be another revelation tomorrow that's going to put paid to all of that, and that's the trouble. 11:26 is the time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me every weekend from 6 a.m. for the stories that matter to you. We talk politics, we talk news, we talk entertainment, we talk about everything that affects your life. There's only one place to start your weekend, the home of common sense. Talk Breakfast on Talk. 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every Friday, Saturday and Sunday here on the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is indeed Talk, and yeah, this whole Epstein affair is still rumbles on. The Prime Minister, as you've just heard, if you've just been listening, has just beginning of a speech she's making in East Sussex, has basically completely addressed the issue. He likes to think about his decision to appoint Mandelson as the ambassador to the US, despite the information already known at the time about his relationship with Epstein. And yeah, sorry, Prime Minister, don't think that's going to fly, mate. Don't think you've done it. I know you think you've done it, you haven't. That whole tone, the whole sorrowful tone, don't think that's going to wash. Let's go to the calls now. 0344 499 1000. Lots of you getting in touch. Matt is in Cheshire. Matt, what did you make of that?
Hi, good morning,
Hi.
Julia. A man of honour that believes in public service
Yes.
would have said sorry and then resigned. He's now on his knees grovelling to us, like he grovelled to Black Lives Matter, like he grovelled to President Xi last week.
Yeah.
To most people, this sounds like an eagle's claws scraping down a blackboard. And if this is what they've cobbled together overnight in Downing Street to try and save his career, it just shows how utterly talentless and stupid that these people are.
I know. Their hubris is extraordinary. They are absolutely convinced. They're all utter geniuses. There was such it was so spoken so precisely, and it was lawyer speak, wasn't it? Mandelson was asked directly. I mean, again, was asked, not well, who by? Did you ask him? Did Morgan McSweeney, his mate, ask him? I mean, I'm sorry. If he thinks that is going to put it all to bed or in any way absolve him, I mean, that's laughable.
He tries to turn on like the doe eyes, and
Doesn't
then he starts with the folded in thumb and the hand movement. This is everything we want rid of in politics: the plastic, boring robot, the disingenuous liar.
I'm sorry so many failed you. Well, yeah, you included, mate.
Yeah, it's literally like doesn't understand that everybody hated him after the winter fuel payment.
Yeah.
And this has just added fuel to the fire, and he's basically accelerated what we all wanted in the first place.
Do you think he survives this, or do you think the backbenchers are going to rise up against him, realising that he is absolutely toxic now?
Yesterday, the left of the Labour Party and all the Tories were basically salivating in dancing on his grave. So he'll be gone in a week, and this country will be better for it. And let's hope we never get people like this ever again. I said many times on Talk, this should be a line in the sand. This man is a disgrace. He's like a hole in the ground with nothing in him.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, Matt. Oh, you summed it up beautifully. Thank you very much indeed. Let's go to Laura Jane, who's in Hampshire. Hello, Laura Jane.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm sorry, but I am deeply upset for something else. I'd like to say the word or words state-sponsored child abuse. And if we take out the words Mandelson in any of that speech, it could have applied to those poor victims in this country where people in power have abused their power and are still abusing their power, and we are still not investigating it properly. And I am beyond upset for them. While I was listening to that speech, all I could feel sick about was for our victims in this country of the rape.
I'm writing just this for a column in the Sun tomorrow. Do read it, because that's my thing. I really do believe, you know, that the cover-up, you know, as I was saying on the show yesterday, I don't believe they're going to really get to the bottom of this. I just think rich, powerful people, or people who are wanting to protect institutions and things, nothing ever happens because, you know, there's Jimmy Savile, Hugh Edwards, you know what I mean? They everyone they basically circle the wagons and they protect the institution, whether it's the BBC, whether it's a charity, whether it's the Labour Party or any other party. They protect the institution first and foremost. It's never the girls.
No, and this is, I mean, I'm not sure that Starmer is going to be thrown under a bus in the immediate future. I think every time we get to this precipice, we all say, and on talk radio, it's now, he's off. This man manages to stay there. I know that Angela Rayner was hovering yesterday at PMQs, but I don't know. This man manages to stay. There is something that I feel really sick about it, but I don't think that he's off.
No, quite yet. I think the only reason why that is the case is they're not quite ready to decide on who they want to, and there's battles there. But also they're in the situation where they want him to take the heat for the local election defeat rather than them. Laura Jane, fantastic call from Matt as well. Thank you very much, Dee. 11:34 is the time. Up next, we're going to talk to a Reform UK councillor about announcements from Farage and what does he make of what the Prime Minister had to say. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 11:37, I think, is the time. It's just approaching 37. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. Coming up, we are going to be talking to lawyer John Cooper, Casey. We're going to be talking to him about not just Lucy Connolly case, interesting developments on that, and also that Palestine Action Court case, which, of course, there's lots of legal difficulties about talking about that, but we will talk about, the facts that we can talk about. We'll explain what the problem is there to you in a few moments. First up, though, let's talk to Reform UK councillor Oliver Freeston, who joins us. A very good morning to you. Hello, Oliver, are you there? Hello, Oliver. Are you on mute? Hello, Oliver Freeston. We can't seem to get him up.
Hello, Julie.
Hello, were you on? Did you have your mute button on?
No, I think it was you, but
it was at our end.
Point,
someone had it. Well, anyway, we got you there. Thank you very much for joining us. Of course, your party leader, we just had a speech from the Prime Minister. Well, he's still... Actually, I think he has finished saying whatever he was saying about other things, but of course everyone was focused on what he was saying about Mandelson. We've also had your party leader giving a speech, and we've got Kemi Badenoch a little bit later giving a speech as well. talking first of all, though, about the Prime Minister and what he had to say about Mandelson, and basically saying similar things, I think, to yesterday at PMQs, basically that, had he known now, well, then what he knows now, he wouldn't have appointed Mandelson. And, he was asked and he lied, and when we found out he lied, we sacked him. Do you think that Keir Starmer survives this?
No, but I didn't think he was going to survive anyway. I think that this will be the straw that broke the camel's back. Labour MPs are revolting on him. They're disgusted, just as the rest of the country are. And for Starmer to sit there and say that he wasn't aware, well, that's ridiculous, because the vetting and advised him of the links, advised him they'd stayed in touch. So this was a deliberate choice by the PM and shows that he lacks any sort of good decision making, and this is the man in charge of our country.
I mean, a lot of people are saying it's the backbenchers who are, on the Labour side who are very unhappy. You could see, a certain amount of glee from opposition party members. But if he did fall, depending on who we would get as an alternative, there isn't likely to be a general election. Your party leader, Nigel Farage, has said a few times, he thinks the general election isn't going to be as late as 2029. I think August 2029 is the latest constitutionally legal date it could be held, obviously following on from a July 2024 election, but he's predicted it could be as early as 2027. What is the scenario in which we do get an earlier election, and would you really want to be facing another Labour leader, or wouldn't it be best for both Reform, Tories and the Greens and the Lib Dems even to be facing basically a sort of wounded, walking wounded Keir Starmer rather than any other Labour leader?
To be quite truthful, Julia, it doesn't matter who Labour put in charge, because they're all part of the same party. They've all supported this PM through his disastrous moves. They've not revolted enough. And for me, Reform UK are the party that are actually leading the polls, and there's no reason for that not to continue. I think that when you look at the leaders that are on show, people can identify with Nigel Farage. People can't identify with Keir Starmer. They don't know what he stands for. His party aren't united. The country isn't united. It's not even like one wing of his party are happy. Nobody's happy. And so, yes, he has to go, but who they replace him with, there's nobody really that stands out from the front benches, because they've all been complicit in what has so far been a disastrous first 18 months in charge.
Well, of course, we know that one of the reasons why all these leaders are out and about is because we've got these local elections coming up across England. We've got the Senate elections in Wales, where Nigel Farage was this morning, and we've got parliamentary elections, of course, for Holyrood in Scotland. We've also, of course, got a by-election, which we can't talk about because we name a single candidate. We have to name every single one. But in terms of what your party leader has announced today, not only have we had another defection, we've had a guy called James Evans, who has defected from the Tories to Reform. But I mean, he was basically sacked, I think, as part of the whole ousting of Robert Jedrick. But you've also got the announcement of the brand new Reform leader in Wales, Dan Thomas, who seems to me, though, he's got lots of experience in local government, but in Barnet, in North London. Is he the ideal choice?
Listen, I trust in our leader to make the right decisions. He's got a party polling from pretty much nothing up to leading the polls in over 200 polls. Some people have got comments on the different defections. Everybody has their own views, which is fine. We live in a democracy. But I think importantly, if our party leadership have decided that this is the way forward, then we've got to get behind it, because they've not done as bad so far, have they?
Well, we shall wait and see. Let's finally, one of the biggest issues that your party has done very well on has been about the small boat crossings. Nigel Farage was the first politician to get out on a boat in the Channel and talk about it. A lot of other politicians have followed through, and even the Labour Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has absolutely been talking about these legal crossings and wanting to take action. Of course, the gangs are not yet smashed, despite the best efforts of the Prime Minister. But yesterday, in talking to the Home Affairs Select Committee, Shabana Mahmood refused to guarantee the small boat crossings will drop, not even just be ended, be dealt with, but would drop by 2027. That's in a year's time. What did you make of that?
I mean, isn't it depressing? They're not smashing the gangs, they're smashing the records. And I just wonder sometimes whether these politicians that come out with these slogans actually believe that it's going to happen, or then they're just going to reinvent themselves a year later with yet another slogan. And they stand there at the lantern and they say it with chest and they seem to really believe it. But the public see through it. The public can see that it's not happening. And whilst the boat crossings aren't being reported every day like they used to be, it's still the major issue on the doorstep. And people know that Reform are the only party that have got credible plans, including leaving the ECHR, which the Conservatives originally said they wouldn't do. They were reluctant. And that's because you've got a party stuffed full of left-leaning, almost liberal Democrats, whereas Reform are the centre-right of politics. And we are willing to take the steps that are necessary to protect our borders.
You're a local councillor. Are you still happy to have those Tories coming into your party? I think it's a quarter of your MPs, more than a quarter of your MPs, half your MPs are ex-Tories, aren't they?
I'm an ex-Tory voter myself, as are millions of people.
Were you a Tory councillor?
I was a Tory councillor. I left in 2024 when Reform were polling 8%, so I'm quite happy of when I left. But ultimately, a lot of people are ex-Tory voters, but we're attracting voters from all over the place. And if people can join the party and bring a skill set and genuinely believe in our values and principles, then I'm fine with that. But the important thing is they're not just doing it to save their own careers.
OK, really good to talk to you, Reform UK Councillor Oliver Freeston. Thank you for that. Philip Ingram, it is interesting, again, because everybody's watching and waiting, what's happening with Keir Starmer. We've got people on his own backbenches waiting, and his cabinet waiting to pounce. We've also got, the other parties waiting to pounce as well. Your best guess? What happens over the next few, I don't know, days, weeks, months?
If he's sensible, he takes himself off to hospital by resigning and gets his wounds fixed and comes back in the back benches. If he's not sensible, he lies there whilst everyone goes and puts the boot in a little bit further, and he will eventually die.
The thing about prime ministers is they're surrounded by people who they've appointed, in whose interest it is that he stays in office, because they lose their jobs and their power as well. So everyone around going, no, Prime Minister, this will definitely work, and this form of words you've just said will definitely work. And
that form of words was, there's so many end games there. It opens more questions than it answers. In the way he spoke, the words he put out there.
This is sort of the problems with having politicians who think they're cleverer than they actually are.
No.
It's a fatal flaw.
They are.
Fatal flaw.
Absolutely fatal.
11:45 is the time. Up next, we're going to be talking about that extraordinary judgment by a jury, ruling by a jury in the case of aggravated burglary by allegations against Palestine Action protesters. We're going to be talking to the human rights lawyer John Cooper, KC, about that case, and about also why we can't really talk fully about that case. I'll make it all clear up next. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me every weekend from 6 a.m. for the stories that matter to you. We talk politics, we talk news, we talk entertainment, we talk about everything that affects your life. There's only one place to start your weekend, the home of common sense. Talk Breakfast on Talk. 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every Friday, Saturday and Sunday here on the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 11:48 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Philip Ingram still with me. Joined now by John Cooper. Casey, he's a leading criminal and human rights barrister. A very good morning to you.
Pleasure to see you again, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. Now, there's two stories I want to talk to you about. One involves Palestine Action activists in a case that may or may not be returned to being live, and also the no longer live case of Lucy Connolly. Let's start with Palestine Action, because let's face it, there's been quite an outcry on social media for and against in relation to the resolution in part of a case involving 5 Palestine Action protesters, and sorry, not I've got a different bit of copy here. The case in which they've been charged with an aggravated burglary and other offences they've been charged with in relation to an Israeli-owned defence firm, and a lot of people very, very surprised by the jury's verdict. Explain to us what's happened.
I think the first thing to say is this is partially an ongoing trial, and so I'm not really going to comment on the facts of that particular case. You'll understand why none of us really can, because we don't want to prejudice any future proceedings. So what I'm going to do on this one is just talk about the generalities of the law, which aren't necessarily associated with this particular.
Can we just explain? I mean, just these were 5 Palestine. I had some notes for it which I thought were wrong, and they were right notes. 5 Palestine Action protesters. They've now been released on bail ahead of a potential retrial over this a break-in at a UK subsidiary of an Israeli defence firm. They were cleared of aggravated burglary after Elbit Systems building near Bristol was targeted in a raid in the early hours of 6th of August 2024. They were also charged with criminal damage and violent disorder. The jury, though, reached partial verdicts or no verdict at all on those counts, and there could be a retrial there. One of the defendants was denied bail. The next hearing is going to be on the 18th of February. But it was a jury at Woolwich Crown Court, 36 hours of deliberating on this. But yeah, so go into the legals of this.
Yes, of course, and I emphasise again, I was just about to say, I think it's important for all of us to say that what I'm about to talk about is the generality of the law, not the particularities for this case, and I'm sure your viewers and your listeners will understand that. Effectively the aggravating burglary, let's just talk about that offence. That's causing damage or GBH whilst trespassing with an intent to cause a burglary, to steal, or to cause damage, or to inflict GBH. So the key of any case of aggravated burglary is intention. Yeah. Now, in this country, unlike in, say, America, we don't know how the jury consider their verdicts, and rightly we don't. They do it in private, and they shouldn't be influenced in any way by their decision. So we don't know and never will know the thought processes of the jury. But clearly, to acquit, they must have been concerned as to whether the prosecution have proven the intent aspect of any form of aggravated burglary. So for there to be an acquittal in any case of aggravated burglary, not this case, any case of aggravated burglary, the issue is intent. And a jury, if they are going to acquit on any case of aggravated burglary, will probably be unsure as to whether there was intent.
So regardless of what actually happens, and of course there is, that individual case is video footage, but let's just take another example of a case of a group of people enter a premises with weapons. This is just another example, and violence is used. It is caught on videotape, and a jury can see this evidence of violence being used on videotape. They're not necessarily having to make a judgment about whether or not that violence happened, or whether A, B or C was responsible or not responsible for that violence. They're asked, in the case of such an allegation, is was there an intent to do that? So it doesn't matter really whether it happened or it didn't happen. It matters what their intention was.
Well, firstly, there has to be, with possession of that weapon, they must be, at the time, in this hypothetical circumstance of a burglary, have a weapon in their possession which they intend to use. But also other aspects will come into play in a general criminal trial, self-defence, for instance, as to whether violence or damage is caused in self-defence. We don't know, I emphasise, in any jury case, how a jury come to their conclusions. But if a jury do acquit on any form of aggravated burglary, it's probably going to be because they're unsure as to whether there's an intent, or possibly they may be of the view that there's some form of protective defence, such as self-defence or a defence of another gun.
Well, this is it. One of the questions in the specific case, one of the questions which a juror asked in open court, well, a question was asked to the judge, and this was revealed in open court, was about the political beliefs of those involved in this particular case. Again, talking hypotheticals. Where somebody, we've had cases, have we not, where we've had climate justice warriors, people who've said, we believe that the planet is dying as of climate change, so we can justify pretty much any of our actions, whether it's stopping traffic or throwing, paint over somewhere or further, because we believe our cause is so important that we can justify what we're doing in those good causes. And we have seen cases where jurors have gone, well, yeah, we agree with you. Or even judges have said, I think, you've got a good cause and you mean right by it. Are jurors in those cases, are they allowed to take into account the political motivations, whatever that is, whether it's, I don't know, whether it was a Brexiteer or whether it was someone who was supporting, the rights of Palestine, or someone was supporting climate change?
Speaking generally, they shouldn't. And what judges always say to juries in situations when questions are asked about a motive, be they moral or otherwise, a judge will say, you must judge this case on the evidence that you heard and on nothing else. And I'm a big fan of the jury system.
Me too.
There's, as you probably know from our previous discussions, and we have to trust our juries to make the right decision. And in the absence of an inquiry as to why they make their decisions, which shouldn't happen, in the absence of that, we just have to trust the system.
Yeah.
But they would be told by the judge, and one would expect them to adhere to that direction, that they must decide the case on the evidence in any particular case.
And is it always the case when there is a verdict where the jury cannot agree a decision, that there will be a retrial? Does it have to be in the public interest?
No. The prosecution now, and this is what they're doing at the moment, will consider whether it's in the public interest to have a retrial, whether there is evidence sufficient that they think that they can still attain a conviction. And if they are of the view, then, and it's in the public interest, as I emphasise again, if they feel it is, and it's a matter for them to decide that, if they think it's in the public interest, then indeed there will be a retrial. And the prosecution will have to make their minds up. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
I think a lot of us are a bit confused by the fact that there hasn't actually been a decision on that, and yet we're still apparently not allowed to discuss it fully and give our judgment on it.
Well, no doubt once a decision is made to discontinue the case, you'll be talking about it.
Yeah, well, indeed. It's interesting how many politicians we've seen who've been celebrating this great victory for civil liberties. But I didn't know that my civil liberties extended to carrying a sledgehammer with me.
Well, it's a pleasure, Julie, to see you exercising human rights and civil liberties.
Well, I feel very strongly about them. Just want to ask you also about Lucy Connolly. Of course, she was convicted, pleaded guilty on the advice of her lawyer to charges about relating to a tweet that she posted on X in the immediate aftermath of the horrific Axel Cabana murders in Southport. We now know, I mean, it's interesting, she wasn't allowed bail. Other people, certainly for a non-violent crime, first offence, would normally be allowed bail. We know there was a lot of, very, very strict, they were going to basically, throw everyone to the wolves on this one. But now, its official documents have shown that it was the Attorney General, Lord Hermer himself, who basically fast-tracked her, gave approval for her case to be fast-tracked and had a prosecution fast-tracked and basically pushed for there to be a incarceration, for her to be imprisoned. We're constantly told that the judicial system, the police, the CPS, the judges, everything, that's all separate from government. They've got no say. And yet the Attorney General, a political appointee by the Prime Minister, is telling the CPS what to do. That seems wrong.
Well, I've looked at this very carefully indeed. Now I'll give my view on issues like this without feeling a favour. You know that one side or the other. And the process has gone as it should do. It's not just the Attorney General. When one looks at it, it's a well-known test that there are 5 thresholds. I won't go into them.
Please don't. We've already got a minute.
No, I won't. I promise you I won't. But there are thresholds that have to be undertaken for this, and I've looked at this very carefully. Each threshold has been undertaken. This action is taken approximately 100, 150 times a year. It's not just the Attorney General. It then has to go back to the CPS for proper consideration. And I think, if I may say so, there's been a slight bit of misreporting here, and just a little bit of hysterics from some politicians. I'll call it out when I have to call it out, but on this occasion, the process was undertaken as it should have been undertaken.
But it was treated as an emergency charging decision, as if they're, under which specialist counter-terrorism prosecutors secured consent for a prosecution. She wrote a tweet.
It's not just that,
She wrote a tweet.
I've got those 5 guidelines here for you anytime you like, because each of those 5 guidelines were followed in terms of public order, risk of public order, outbreaks, which this, some might say, clearly passed that threshold.
Yeah, I'd say clearly didn't pass that threshold. I don't believe for a moment. I don't believe for a moment, if she'd not been convinced to be guilty, that she would ever been convicted of that crime, and certainly wouldn't have served time.
Well, she pleaded guilty. That's the thing.
Because she was advised she would get out sooner, and that's the thing. It seems to me that the government can't have it both ways. They cannot have a situation where they say,
I'm arguing the government. I'm arguing.
They say no, but they say that they it's all independent, nothing to do with them, and then they apparently direct things. I'm going to have to leave it there. John Cooper, KC, leading criminal and human rights barrister, thank you so much for joining us. Lots more to talk about. We'll get Philip Ingram's thoughts on this. Very frustrating trying to have that conversation about that case involving Palestine action, but we can talk in hypotheticals. Up next, we are going to talk to the Baroness Claire Fox about the Prime Minister, what he's had to say at PMQs and his speech today. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. It's 2 minutes past midday. This is Talk, the home of common sense. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Thank you so much for your company. Wow, it's been an extraordinary morning, an extraordinary week with these Epstein files and implications not just for many, many people. Andrew, Mandelson, but also now for the Prime Minister, of the United Kingdom as well. Well, he absolutely is clearly aware of just how bad his position is, not just with the general public, but also with his own backbenchers as well, with the speech that he gave earlier today. The first thing he was doing was actually addressing the issue of Mandelson. Bring you a couple of clips if you had the fortune, not the fortune of missing it. But I really appreciate you joining me to get in touch on all of this. Lots of you listening on DAB Plus radio, on your smart speaker, you're watching on YouTube, your connect device. I welcome you all. Thank you very much. Lots of you getting in touch. Of course, also on the phone lines, 0344 499 1000, texting on 87222, getting in touch on X at talkTV. Calls, of course, are charged at the national rate. Text cost 1, standard network rate message. But we've got lots more to talk about in terms of the Prime Minister's speech. We also have had the Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, and she has also just been speaking. And also we have got plenty more other stories to talk about. Joining me in the studio, delighted to say, is Philip Ingram, former senior military intelligence officer. He's been fascinating on what level of vetting that we get for people being appointed, things like, I don't know, just to pluck a name out of, pluck a job out of the air, Washington ambassador. And there were definitely lies, but was there enough vetting? Here is what the Prime Minister had to say about the depth and darkness of the relationship between Mandelson and Epstein.
Recent days, serious allegations and serious evidence has emerged concerning Mandelson's conduct, including his relationship with Epstein, a convicted sex offender. It had been publicly known for some time that Mandelson knew Epstein, but none of us knew the depth and the darkness of that.
I think we just lost the end of that. Knew the depth and darkness of that relationship. Well, that's actually not true. We know that we did know, and he did say later on that Mandelson had been asked directly about his relationship and had he stayed at the Epstein's home, and later had he accepted gifts and hospitality, and he lied. Basically, that's what he said. He also had words of apology for Epstein's victims.
I want to say this. I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you. Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him. And sorry that even now you're forced to watch this story unfold in public once again.
Yeah, well, those are the stern words, and note the tone. Philip Ingram, what did you make of all of that?
I can't actually say the words on air.
Keep it clean.
In what's in there. We have to remember that Keir Starmer's taking this in isolation, and he's saying he didn't know. Peter Mandelson had been at the heart of government for many, many years. He'd been Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. To get to be Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, you have to be vetted to an extremely high level. You have to have access to some of the most sensitive information that comes out of the Security Service and the Intelligence Service and all the rest of it. Mandelson will have been vetted, and there will be a vetting file many, many times, and therefore a lot of this detail will be sitting there and will have been sitting there the whole way through. And if Keir Starmer turned around to his Chief of Staff and said, don't give me the detail, I just want the answers to his questions, then Keir Starmer can say, I didn't know and wasn't aware. But actually he will have had
plausible deniability.
Plausible deniability. But the detail was there.
The trouble is
it was known by the government.
No one thinks it's plausible. It was known by the government. They should have told the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister didn't
knew.
Or didn't want to know.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm sorry, he knew.
Again, as we kept hearing, we heard from Adam Bolton, who's Mandelson's friend yesterday. Basically, the risk was worth taking, when everyone else, including me, was saying that's not a risk worth taking. And it's a bit rich,
well, you have to know the risk before deciding it's worth taking.
Yeah,
He knew.
Information now available. Well, look, let's talk about this with Baroness Claire Falk. She's an independent peer and director of the Academy of Ideas. Good afternoon to you, Claire.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us. I mean, you've just heard those clips. No doubt you might have heard the Prime Minister earlier. He was supposed to be giving a speech about unity and helping deprived communities. I mean, although, again, less than £1 billion for the whole country. I mean, no offence to Prime Minister, but that's not really going to touch the sides of that issue. He had a lot to say on other things, but I've got to be honest with you, we didn't take that bit live because we've heard it 1 million times before. Although, frankly, I think we'd heard 1 million times before what he said in his comments about Mandelson. But basically, he didn't know Well, if he'd known then what he knows now, he would have appointed him as soon as he knew he was sacked, woken up at 5:30 in the morning, as ministers have been keen to point out, and then sacked from the job. Does any of this explain and justify the appointment, or do you think that not only is Mandelson, as we know now, toast, but is Keir Starmer as well?
So I think we need to untangle two parts of this scandal. It is undoubtedly the case, it seems to me, that Keir Starmer did not know that Mandelson was literally within seconds of information coming out about the British economy in relation to the crash and Gordon Brown and so on. The first person that he contacted was Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
In that sense, this is the betrayal of state secrets, traitorous behaviour, presumably for money or favours, but it doesn't matter why it is. The fact that the first person he contacted him within seconds was somebody who was a convicted paedophile, but also somebody who has got nothing to do with the British state. That in and of itself is one part of the scandal. And in a way, that is the shocking part of the scandal. What he did know, of course, was that Peter Mandelson was a bit of a chancer who was very attracted to powerful men, people and money, and that he had therefore got himself into hot water previously. He also knew that he was still in touch with and friendly with, at whatever level, Jeffrey Epstein, who was associated with this vile sexual abuse and trafficking of particularly young girls and women.
Yeah.
So, but there's two parts of the scandal, and what was confusing today was that he was sort of apologising to the victims, not acknowledging that this was a complete breach of state secrets that Mandelson did.
Yeah.
But the reason why we need to understand this is because this was somebody who, if he didn't know he was doing that, he should have known, or it should have been investigated. And secondly, that he overlooked what are huge character flaws in this character for entirely opportunistic, pragmatic, transactional reasons. Oh, it might work. So what it reveals to me, apart from anything else, is that Keir Starmer is not a man of principle, because you can have campaign against violence against women and girls. You can stand up and talk about how you're going to reduce it by 50%, and at the same time think, but it's probably worth the risk of putting Mandelson in that job. Let's just kind of brush over that. And at the same time, by the way, try and avoid the big shocking scandal, which I really, really wish Starmer was being held to account of, which is, of course, the grooming gang.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, he issued this apology to Epstein's victims, his concern about violence against women and girls, and yet, people like you and me calling for a public inquiry, we were just far-right jumpers on bandwagons, weren't we?
Exactly. And still, even though they've announced the public inquiry, none is forthcoming. Yep. It's been all gone eerily quiet. And so I think that, I suppose if I have some irritation with this story, it's that I, of course, think that Keir Starmer is not fit to govern in many ways, but I almost don't want him to go on this. I mean, there's so many reasons why he's not fit to govern. And even as you just pointed out, he was doing this sort of worthy talk about bringing communities to life and the high street and this government has destroyed communities and the high street and betrayed them. And I can't bear that he did that speech this morning saying, look, I want to talk about what I'm really doing really brilliantly. Well, I'm sorry, but you destroyed hospitality industries. Through not emphasising the importance of integration by not dealing with illegal migration and also the preferential treatment too often given to illegal migrants in terms of homes and housing.
He's got words.
Destroying communities.
We didn't take this bit of the speech because I like my audience too much, but just to give a taste, and you'll see why you're implicated. He said we've got to reverse the devastating decline in our communities. Did you say? Who did that? We've got to give power, agency, and control to the very people who want to improve their community. Local elections would be nice in every area. That's not happening. This is what our Pride in Place programme is about, because pride is a social glue, the force that holds together a community and a country. Any country that cannot keep its high streets states alive, its bills down, and its people feeling respected will struggle to meet the test of our times. So we must strengthen our society because it is vital for the future of this country. I mean, that's just meaningless twaddle. And then he says, he did say earlier, he goes, Britain is the greatest country in the world, stronger as a tolerant, decent and respectful country. And he says that the country has been undermined by those who seek to sow division. Britain has been undermined by political neglect. He also has a go at the Tories and, of course, at reform. But this is the thing. I mean, you know, the problem is you sowing division. It's not the problem of what's actually being done in terms of the government.
Absolutely right to emphasise the local elections. I was just about to say that. I mean, here we are in a situation where he says we're empowering local communities, except we're denying millions of people, and I can't believe there isn't more of a scandal about this, denying millions of people their democratic right to vote. In some instances, that will mean that for 7 years, local councillors will not have been held to account. And local people cannot be empowered by Keir Starmer making a speech or by, you know, a little bit of money thrown at them, but by actually having the capacity to control what happens locally. And even when he says we're giving more power to local areas, he means local councils. He doesn't mean local people, because when local people organise and express their frustration at maybe, I don't know, an asylum hotel in the local area, frustration at the levels of crime not being tackled and so on, when those things are expressed, those people are accused of divisive rhetoric, of stirring things up, and very often are in fact demonised in such a way that I would accuse the Prime Minister of being divisive, because he is the one who points the finger at people and says they are the bad guys. And very often they are local people simply expressing concern about the degeneration of their local area.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt at all about that. But you mentioned, again, something we haven't spent much time on today, although we have over the last few days, Peter Mandelson, the implications in terms of the giving financial secrets, misconduct in public office. This was the reason, this was also talked about in the speech today by Keir Starmer, the reason why he desperately wants to publish all these documents in relation to the decision to appoint Peter Mandelson as our ambassador in Washington. But the police have advised, because there's an investigation into these allegations of misconduct in public office, he can't publish everything. But of course, what you knew at the time about Peter Mandelson's relationship with Epstein is neither here nor there to those allegations, I would have thought, which is rather misleading. But the key issue here then has been about choosing to, bleat on about being moral and a good person, going on about you want to tackle violence against women and girls, this plan to halve violence against women and girls during his time in office, not agreeing to the grooming gang inquiry, national inquiry, and still nothing actually happening in relation to that all these years on, and appointing a man who was an apologist and a close friend of a paedophile, and it was known at the time. None of this is ringing very true. Let's have another listen to a clip of what the Prime Minister had to say about, I think he thinks this is vetting of Mandelson, but have a listen to what he had to say here.
Before he was appointed ambassador, Mandelson was asked directly about the nature of his relationship with Epstein. He was asked whether he had stayed at Epstein after his conviction. He was asked whether he had accepted gifts and hospitality, about whether he had been fully transparent about the relationship. He portrayed Epstein as someone he barely knew. And when that became clear, and it was not true, I sacked him.
Well, that's obviously Claire Falk's supposed to sound like, well, I was very decisive. But bearing in mind, this is a man who is a trained barrister, who's Casey, who's Director of Public Prosecutions. This is a man, you also know, he's got that legal, forensic mind. He was apparently incredibly shocked that a man who was proven on many, many occasions to be a known liar had lied to him.
I think this is an extraordinary part of this story. It's a bit like, are you or have you ever been a mass murderer, a drug dealer, or, all those daft questions that you get in a way, which is you just go, no, never done that. I mean, with the idea that you're going to go, yes, by the way, I've been giving away state secrets to him and I've known him really well and I've been staying in his house. And by the way, we're really good mates. I mean, that's not going to happen. And any cross-examining barrister would know that, you know, the way to the truth, you might ask, but you might not believe. And when he then says, so I was totally shocked. Yes. The one caveat I've got on the demands for transparency and to see the vetting notes, by the way, is I think that, you know, Kemi Badenoch is kind of like jumping on, you know, rather enjoying.
Well, she said today, she said Keir Starmer's position is clearly untenable.
Yeah, but she's demanding everything is out in the open and we have full transparency. I do actually think that's a slightly dangerous situation to be in. I don't think that all vetting notes need to be in public. No. I do actually think the state should have some secrets, you know, behind the scenes. I don't think that anyone is ever appointed to anything, that all of their everything about them should be revealed. What we need to be in a position is that somebody is properly vetted, not asked a few awkward questions so they can lie, properly vetted behind the scenes, that then the Prime Minister reads that vetting and says, I am now going to take a decision based on having read that vetting, right? If then he decides to take the risk, the Adam Bolton point, then he is responsible for that person being who he was when he was made the ambassador to America, right? Yeah. The vetting was done. He decided to take a risk. We can say it was the wrong decision, but what we don't want is to say, we want to see your jottings. And the reason I'm saying that is because it's already the case that the government are in a situation, or, you know, it's become fashionable to say that privacy is it doesn't matter what you know about people. You know, if everything about you was put in the public place,
very few of us would want that.
By the state, we would be all saying, I don't want them to know every single thing.
No, but also other people wouldn't come forward in public life. I mean, he brought this on himself. But in terms of the decision by Labour MPs, you know, led by Angela Rayner, putting the knife in the front, not even the back, saying basically, the argument was basically, we do not trust that the government number 10, the cabinet secretary, or the chief of staff could be in charge of what is and what is not needed to be redacted for security reasons, national security reasons. So they said it should go to the Intelligence Security Committee, and this is, of course, a crossbench group of MPs who have full security clearance. They can look at this stuff and they can say, they've already said, we want to have full disclosure. But we can trust them, can we not?
Yeah, but Angela Rayner pulled a blinder. But I'm still making the point. This wouldn't be the scandal and the absolute firestorm it is for Keir Starmer if he was a wonderful Prime Minister. And what's happened is this has given cover to all those MPs who want to actually say he should go anyway, right? And so in some ways, I simply want proper political accountability for all the things this government has done. And I hate to go on about it, but it's just that I think that by saying this is the main scandal, I mean, I think probably, by the way, Nigel Farage is right to say it's, you know, the greatest political scandal of 100 years. But there is just something wrong with the fact that this government has actually been involved in a wide range of proper scandals, of cover-ups, of actually destroying the livelihoods of ordinary people, of effectively telling us mistruths. You know, the Employment Rights Bill is all about workers' rights. Well, actually, it's going to destroy many jobs in this country. The national insurance contributions are destroying people. And I want us not to forget why it is that we want to see the back of Starmer and not just get caught up in the fashionable scandal of the day.
I completely agree. I don't think for a moment this is like the biggest, worst scandal of, you know, this is about pointing someone who was friends with someone who's, you know, okay, but it turns out, you know, again, if there are allegations contained in the Epstein files about, you know, basically giving away, you know, confidential information, yeah, that's absolutely a scandal. But again, Keir Starmer, this is entirely a making of his own of his own problem. This could have had nothing to do with him or the British government or the British, the state of Britain. We wouldn't because it wasn't our problem, because it was something that happened a long time ago and nothing to do with him. And that just shows how bad he is. I think it would just be, I think you're right, I think it's be the straw that breaks the camel back. That is not the reason why he's the most unpopular Prime Minister ever. That's not the reason why he can't get a single bit of legislation through unless all his backbenchers agree. It's not why he's facing leadership challenges, why he's just absolutely on the back foot. And I don't know how many more resets. What was this speech today? This was bound to be one of those, what are we in, phase 47 by now of this Labour government? We're only 18 months in. The whole thing's an absolute disaster. But if you had to make a prediction, and I know a lot of people don't like doing this, how long do you think he's still in office for? Do you think he lasts till after the local elections?
Well, he's so impervious to criticism that if he would, I mean, even the way he did that speech today, I know he was shaking yesterday in Parliament, but the audacity of coming out and saying, I'm the good guy who's trying to do things for communities, and you lot are being distracted by the evil Peter Mandelson. I just thought, show a little bit of humility. But in other words, he's capable of staying as long as he possibly can until actually actively members of his own party deal with him. I did want to say one thing, just because I'm preoccupied with it and the Lords myself, which is, you know, I think it's a scandal that the Prime Minister promised a celebrity, Esther Ranson, that he'd get a bill through, which he then didn't have the courage to put through himself, gave it as a private member's bill, has given it a lot. This is the assisted dying bill. I don't care what side you're on that. It is not up to the Prime Minister to promise his celebrity chums. I mean, this is.
I'm with you all the way. No, our laws now are made either because of celebrities involved or even like spending on healthcare, whether celebrities involved or whether you have a grieving parent. I don't think either is a good way to make a law. Thank you so much. Always so good to talk to you. I'm so glad you're in the House of Lords. The amount of times like she's the only person talking sense on any topic. Baroness Claire Fox, independent, absolutely in her soul of souls, independent peer and director of the Academy of Ideas. Thank you for that. Philip Ingram, your response to what she had to say?
Well, you know, she's the perfect example of why the House of Lords actually adds value. And delaying the Chagos deal and everything else, and people criticise it. But it's got people who have got, on the whole, not everyone, sensible backgrounds, who have lived a little bit, who can put things into context and are not afraid to hold the government to account, no matter what their political affiliation is. They tend to talk common sense most of the time. And this is critical. We've got especially when we've got a government that doesn't talk common sense about anything.
Absolutely. Well, coming up, we're going to take your calls. We're also going to be talking about some latest woke madness. We've got to always get that in every day. And we're going to be talking to Di Davies, the former Royal Protection Officer, about what he makes of the whole thing. We talked to him earlier in the week, and I think it's all kind of exploded even more since then. This is Talk, the home of common sense.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me every weekend from 6 a.m. for the stories that matter to you. We talk politics, we talk news, we talk entertainment, we talk about everything that affects your life. There's only one place to start your weekend, the home of common sense. Talk Breakfast on Talk. 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every Friday, Saturday and Sunday here on the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. 12:27 is the time. Let's get straight to your calls now on Talk. 0344 499 1000 is the number. 87222 is the number to get in touch on text. Barry's on the line. He's calling in from Norwich. Barry, what do you make of Starmer at PMQs yesterday, what we've known now about the appointment of Mandelson, and what he's had to say today?
Well, I just listened to his press conference, yeah.
I'm just going to say, I'd like to apologise on behalf of the Prime Minister for you having to do that.
Well, that's fine. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, he needs to go because you know what? Yeah, right. Whatever this government tries to do, apart from this, every press conference he now gives is going to be about that. It's not going to be about the things on the agenda or what he's doing. It's going to be about that. Yeah, right. And when I listened to him, he was like, yeah, the victims need looking up. I was thinking, hang on a second here. Yeah, right. You're the individual who's covering up rape gangs.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. This Labour Party, the whole party, is just drowning in scandal after scandal after scandal. And they are bringing the country... The country around the world just looks like a laughing stock.
Yeah. Well, especially with the Prime Minister. I mean, look, no one thought that Boris Johnson was whiter than white, or indeed Donald Trump was whiter than white. Boris Johnson's family life. Keir Starmer's always painted himself as this very moral, upright, defender of the law and our moral conscience. And he said that when he arrived at Downing Street the first time. And I'm sorry, it's just not looking very good at the moment.
This is Starmer, the guy who basically was calling for Boris Johnson's head for eating a piece of cake.
It was more than that.
Well, yeah, I know, but
but I know what you mean.
And you've got this going on.
Yeah,
right. I mean, he said he didn't know Mandelson was. That entwined with, but he was been sacked twice from 2 previous jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, for lying. But also, there was stuff that was in the public domain. It was in the papers. MPs, others came and warned him. Lots of people said on air. We were all talking about it, saying this is a bad idea. We're talking about it on this show. I think we maybe even done a phone-in on this show about it. I mean, it's just absurd. This I didn't know. But again, so they didn't. What he's admitting is they did ask him about it. They asked him about it because they knew. But then he said it wasn't true. But they chose to believe the man who was a known liar. That shows such poor judgment, and I doubt very much that if it was he was cross-examining someone in court, that the barrister Keir Starmer would have accepted those answers and gone, oh well, fair enough, let's carry on then. No case to answer.
I look at him and I think, who appointed him as a? How did he get to a KC?
You've got to. I couldn't tell you. Couldn't agree with you more how much I cannot get over this man was Director of Public Prosecutions. Middle manager in ASDA at best.
Yeah, probably, yeah. I mean,
no, but seriously, no offence to middle managers in ASDA. But
honestly, I mean, when he came into office, he was like, yeah, I'm not going to be like the Conservatives. I'm not going to be sleaze. I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to be this, that. From day one, he was taking freebies to Taylor Swift concerts and freebies. And it's just been one thing after another, after another, another. Just go, man.
For the love of God, go, as once famously said. Barry, fantastic call. Thank you so much. Let's go to David in Stirling. David, you've got a lot to live up to.
Hi, Julia.
Hi,
well, the point I wanted to make was Keir Starmer went on and he appointed Mandelson, but from what I understand, well, obviously Mandelson's been involved in the Labour Party from before 1997.
Yeah.
And it looks like to me, no journalist asking the question. I listened to Steve Reid this morning and he was saying the process didn't work and the vetting didn't work. But nobody's asking the question. Both Starmer and everybody else is almost making out they had no option but appoint him.
Yeah, there was no one else.
Surely there must have been a list of 30 people that were qualified.
Well, there was the actual serving Westminster ambassador who was actually regarded very highly.
Exactly. So that leads me on to, was there a deal done beforehand that Mandelson would come back and get a good job? Now, the way things are turning out, that doesn't sound so far-fetched, actually, because McSweeney is one of his protégés. McSweeney's right in the middle. Was Mandelson not involved in getting Starmer to the top of the Labour Party?
Yeah.
So you journalist guys need to dig a lot deeper and get him on the spot. And actually, if there's any Labour MPs listening, if they have got a shred of decency left, they will get rid of this guy. There is nobody, not even his toolmaker of a father, would defend him. He is an absolute embarrassment.
Couldn't agree with you more. Yeah.
And he has got no common decency at all. And the amount of things he has went back on, the promises he has broken. He stood on the steps of Downing Street and said that it was going to be a government of service. Yeah. What he didn't point out, it was a service to themselves. And there'll be some good people in the Labour Party, and they should get rid of him, because they can only go one way once they get rid of him and all his apparatchiks, because this is an absolute scandal.
David, again, fantastic. He lived up to Barry. I'm loving your calls, guys. Thank you so much. Took a lot more sense than, frankly, a lot of the people, the talking heads we hear on the telly. Do not. Philip Ingram listening to David and Barry there. I mean, they're furious.
Oh, they are furious, and they're 100% accurate. You know, a government of service, a government of disservice, I think, is what we're seeing, or government of no service. Here, where we can start another trend instead of two-tier care, not-tier care, and all the rest of it. So, how many different services can people get out there and put it on Twitter?
Believe any lie, Starmer. I mean,
exactly.
Absolutely extraordinary. 12:33 is the time. We're going to take a break. We're going to be talking to Dad Davis, the former head of Royal Protection. We spoke to him earlier in the week, saying about stuff around Prince Andrew must have gone all the way to the top at the palace. The Queen's personal private secretary, the late Queen, would have known things. I asked him about the latest developments here involving Mandelson and everybody else as well. I'm sure he's done some vetting in his time. We'll ask him what he makes, what the Prime Minister's had to say. We'll play some more. Just because you've been very badly behaved, you're going to have more clips of the Prime Minister. But there's some extraordinary words that he's had to say today. Stay tuned. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, sorry, good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 12:37 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk, the home of common sense. Let's try to get some common sense. We always do from our next guest, Di Davies. He's former head of Royal Protection. Very good afternoon to you, Di.
Hello, good afternoon. Yes, you've got me travelling today.
Oh, yes, he's in the car. You very kindly have stepped in to give us your thoughts. I wanted to talk to you because we spoke to you earlier in the weekend. You were really, absolutely on it when it came to, who would have known what, how far up it would have gone when it came to Prince Andrew and his Royal Protection officers and passing information up the chain of command in the Met Police, but also, of course, up the chain of command in Buckingham Palace as well. The focus today and yesterday has very much been on the Prime Minister and his misjudgment in terms of appointing Peter Mandelson as our man in Washington. I want to play you three little clips of what the Prime Minister had to say, not at PMQs yesterday, where he did first admit that, yes, he did know, it was known that Peter Mandelson had stayed friends with Jeffrey Epstein after he was already a convicted paedophile. But this morning in a speech that was supposed to be about community and other things, he decided to give his tuppence worth on the Mandelson issue. Here is what he had to say.
In recent days, serious allegations and serious evidence has emerged concerning Mandelson's conduct, including his relationship with Epstein, a convicted sex offender. It had been publicly known for some time that Mandelson knew Epstein, but none of us knew the depth and the darkness of that relationship.
The Prime Minister then went on to say this.
Before he was appointed ambassador, Mandelson was asked directly about the nature of his relationship with Epstein. He was asked whether he had stayed at Epstein after his conviction. He was asked whether he had accepted gifts and hospitality, about whether he had been fully transparent about the relationship. He portrayed Epstein as someone he barely knew. And when that became clear, and it was not true, I sacked him.
Well, it sounds all very, very sort of to the point, does it not? But he also had this to say about Epstein's victims.
I want to say this. I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you. Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him. And sorry that even now you're forced to watch this story unfold in public once again.
Di Davies, former head of Royal Protection, listening to all of that, you would have overseen some vetting in your time, I'm very, very sure. You yourself would have been vetted to do the job you did in Royal Protection, certainly as head of Royal Protection. Does any of that ring true?
I find it astonishing, frankly, what he's just said. The same can be applied to Prince Andrew. He was a trade ambassador for many, many years, and yet it was known in many, many different quarters who he was mixing with, who he was allegedly getting all manner of commissions from, and yet no one in authority did anything about it. I'm sorry for the victims. I'm sorry that the Metropolitan Police and those in authority have ignored the victims. We now know, and I've said it years ago, 5 years ago, he wasn't telling the truth then, and yet this has been allowed to continue for 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
Is he sorry about Prince Andrew? Is he sorry about the failure of so many to investigate him properly? And that continues to this day. There's a big hoo-ha about Mandelson, who, of course, we all agree was a dreadful man now. But so many of us would allege So is Prince Andrew. And why aren't they investigating him to the same level?
Two very different sets of allegations that those two men are facing. The Sun the other day, I think it was yesterday, the princes of darkness. Neither a prince. One's lost his titles and one's about to lose his peerage. But again, the allegations against Epstein are, basically being an apologist, a friend of a paedophile, a convicted paedophile. We know that the Prime Minister would have known because it was in the public domain. So you'd think the security authorities might have found it with a quick Google of newspapers that not only was Epstein and good friends with Mandelson. Mandelson had stayed at his home in his beautiful multi-million-pound Manhattan house while Epstein wasn't there. Why wasn't he there? Because he was in prison at that time in 2009 for soliciting a 14-year-old girl for prostitution. Now, Mandelson has said in previous interviews, look, I didn't believe that was true. Epstein said he was fitted up. Basically, it wasn't true. But the Prime Minister would have known about this, and he said, that he was asked questions. But the situation where the security services are saying he stayed in the house, he flew to this guy, he'd been on the island, he'd done this, when the Prime Minister says, Mandelson's answers suggested he was someone that he barely knew. When the evidence in black and white, the objective evidence, says that is not true, why on earth would the Prime Minister have been able to gone ahead to appoint him? But why would he have been allowed to? Has there ever been a scenario for you where the security services, the police, would have said, no, you can't appoint that person. They are a national security risk because of what we absolutely already know about them, regardless of what they say?
Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you? You would think that the head of MI6 or whoever, or the permanent secretary in the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, anyone who must have known about Mandelson, must have known the kind of character that he was, and again has often said how many times he's come back. And again, surely somebody should have looked at the antecedents so carefully, given his background, given the fact that twice he'd been sacked. And yet he was brought back by Brown, he was made a Lord. It just shows in this country there's a stink. As I said before, what on earth is going on at the highest echelon? And we're meant to respect these people.
Yeah, exactly.
And the parallels with Prince Andrew, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, there are so many equivocals about the behaviour, and nobody did anything.
And no one's
about
saying
him
anything exactly, and this person being considered someone you basically couldn't tackle. But the Prime Minister said, to the victims, sorry that so many people with power failed you. But he's one of those people, of course, by appointing someone who's an apologist for it. But again, as we know, Andrew was also a trade envoy. He represented the country, not appointed by Keir Starmer long before he was in power. He's now been, sent off into exile. I mean, Norfolk. He's not in, Timbuktu. He's in Norfolk, and he's in a very nice house, waiting for his other very nice house. He's going to be living there for free on the King's money, of course, which he just got gets from simply being the Queen's the late Queen's eldest son. But I mean, the thing about that, the allegations against Prince Andrew also involve more and more women coming out of the woodwork and saying, I was trafficked to have sex with this man. Some of the emails suggesting, other things, prostitutes. Now, it's not illegal for them to have had sex parties. It's not illegal for and some of these things. Some of it you might regard as rather tacky and horrible. But do you think there is, given what you know, more to come out that's going to be even more damaging than what we already know, given that we now know for 100% sure, which we all knew already, that photograph of him with Virginia Giuffre that he said was fake was absolutely true?
Well, I do, and I go back to the failure of the Met Police to actually go and interview him properly. Yes. As far as I know, I don't think he's ever been interviewed.
I don't think he has.
I don't think any of those who are serving with him have ever been interviewed properly. As I said to you 6 years ago, I said if there's evidence, then he should be interviewed under caution. And I remain saying that. We keep saying about the victims. They deserve justice, and they deserve, if the allegation, unfortunately, sadly, Miss Roberts is now dead. Yeah. But there are others coming forward. It shows a pattern of behaviour. And if you're a police officer, that's part of the issue, that you would put together a case, you would investigate. And I keep saying, if you don't investigate, you won't find evidence. But it's not just the sexual aspect, it's who he was mixing with.
Yeah.
We're saying due diligence now. it's alleged by many that he was involved with the Chinese, he was involved with the Libyans, he's been involved with dodgy dictators. Where do you stop? And yet we're all calling for Mandelson, quite rightly, to be investigated. Why aren't Parliament, why aren't they having a debate saying, why aren't we investigating Andrew?
Absolutely. Di Davies, so appreciate you joining us. Former head of Royal Protection there, Di Davies. Thank you for that. Philip Ingram, I'm pretty sure you and I agree with every word of that. I mean, again, when Keir Starmer says, people with power failed you, they do it every day.
Yeah, I agree with everything he said completely. Andrew is an anomaly. He is irrelevant completely and all the rest of it. When you look at Mandelson's appointment and you look at what Keir Starmer's doing, you look at the uphill digging he's doing to try and get out of the pile of poo, the things that aren't coming out in what he's saying is, the appointment of him to be ambassador to the United States has to be approved by the Foreign Commonwealth Office. So the Foreign Secretary has to give his personal approval or her personal approval. The Home Office is responsible for the domestic vetting and everything else. So the Home Secretary has to give his or her approval for what's going on. And then the Cabinet Secretary sits down. So we've got the most powerful people at the centre of government will all have been involved in this decision. We need to hold all of them to account because they've all got a degree of responsibility for either neglecting to do the job that they are supposed to do or by covering things up and accepting a risk that is unacceptable.
Absolutely. This whole story, every time you think you know it all, it keeps on exploding. This is expanding. It ain't going to go away. 12:48 is the time. We're going to take a quick break now, and then we're going to be talking about something completely different. Stay tuned. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me every weekend from 6 a.m. for the stories that matter to you. We talk politics, we talk news, we talk entertainment, we talk about everything that affects your life. There's only one place to start your weekend, the home of common sense. Talk Breakfast on Talk. 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every Friday, Saturday and Sunday here on the home of common sense.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 12:51 is the time. Let's turn our attention to two completely different stories right now, but the latest woke madness with my guest, Emma Tribble, Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum. Very good afternoon to you.
Good to be with you, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. Let's talk, first of all, about schoolgirls being banned from wearing skirts at a school in Bridgend in South Wales. New policy at the beginning of the next school year in September, 1,600 pupils. They're going to be banned from wearing skirts as part of, I don't understand, an equality drive. Can you explain this?
Interesting, isn't it, Julia, that equality means denying girls the right to choose what they wear and forcing them instead to dress like the boys.
Although the boys usually, boys for years, they weren't allowed the choice. They had to wear trousers.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't want to give anyone ideas because it's not beyond the realms of possibility that some school might try to force the boys to wear skirts.
Yeah.
But I think back on when I was at school, and I would have absolutely hated to wear trousers. Girls' bodies are different from boys, and particularly when girls are growing and their bodies are changing, there's a lot more give in a skirt as kids grow up. And they're not doing this in a way that is phasing out the old school uniform either. They're just demanding that the parents immediately buy their girls some trousers.
Yes, but we know what this is about. This is about trans ideology, trans activists insisting, and telling boys, you can dress as if you're a girl. And girls, of course, lots of schools allow girls to wear trousers as an option if they want them as well anyway. But this ridiculous thing, so the solution is, well, we won't have any girls wearing skirts, so no boys don't, so it's all equal. But actually, it's always involved, whenever there's anything about being inclusive and equality, it always involves taking away the rights of women and girls.
Yeah, and this is a point that parents have made in schools where this kind of policy has come in, because they've made the uniform effectively non-binary. They've made it gender neutral, and parents have complained that they're just defeminizing the girls. They're refusing the right of the girls to express themselves by wearing feminine clothing, and it always is the way. It's always, when it comes to gender neutrality, it's always the women that have to give up their spaces, that have to give up their clothes in order to fit with this new progressive paradigm that nobody asked for, by the way.
Oh, yeah, of course not. I'm sure the parents weren't banging on about this. Again, it is just extraordinary. And again, the equality drive. I wonder if the equality drive includes girls getting to go to the toilet without a boy claiming to be a girl being in the toilets with them.
Well, that would, of course, now be against the law, Julia. But as we've seen with lots of institutions across the country, they're just simply unwilling to actually enforce the law, because men are not allowed legally to enter into women's spaces.
Yep.
But there are still some people who are trying to dig their heels in and refusing to allow women to have their sex-based rights.
It is extraordinary. That I can't get over that story. April last year, the Supreme Court ruling, done and dusted. The law was the law. It hadn't changed. That was always the law under the Equality Act, and yet we are still fighting battles on that front. This next story, I find this quite encouraging. It's actually kind of the opposite of a woke story. This is the biggest theme park company in the country, Alton Towers. They have decided to change their rules when it comes to getting into the queue for disabled people, and everyone will know you can buy your fast pass, but also if you've got a disability, you can basically bypass the queues. You don't have to stand and queue. You can basically queue effectively, online. So yeah, you're in the queue for just, but you're not actually having to stand there, which makes sense for people who've got severe disabilities. Of course it does. And why would we not want to help those people to make sure their adults and children could enjoy that? Well, they've decided now, this is Merlin Entertainments, that it will no longer include allowing people with ADHD and anxiety and other lower down, should we say, mental health conditions from claiming a disability or medical condition to basically jump the queue like that. I, for one, welcome this. I'm assuming because every Tom, Dick and Harry was going, oh, yeah, I've got this, and they were all, so basically, you've basically got half the people at Alton Towers jumping the queue.
Yeah, common sense prevails, Julia. As you say, the whole idea is that you have a virtual queue so that those people who are not able to stand in the queue can still be in the queue. But if you have loads of people who are actually quite capable of standing in a queue, joining this virtual queue, then you're just making the queue longer unjustifiably for those people who actually have no choice but to not stand in the queue. So it's a perfect common sense from them. And of course, I mean, they've not gone the whole hog on this. They're still willing to make some kind of concessions for, say, if you have a severely autistic person who has trouble being in crowds. But what they've done is they've made a distinction between those who are unable to stand and those who have difficulty being in crowds. So they'll still make some kind of concessions for people who actually need it. But you have so many people, sort of like exponential growth of people who are being diagnosed with, particularly with ADHD. And there's no reason why somebody with ADHD can't stand in a normal queue, would have to join a virtual queue. What, because they might get bored standing in the queue? They might get
So do I.
I mean, Everybody does, exactly. So I think it's common sense to not have all disabilities on exactly the same playing field when it comes to what people can and cannot do.
And if only this policy could be actually expanded to government in terms of people's access to benefits and all the extra money and, you know, the Motability cars and all of that, where, of course, somebody who is, you know, limbless or something might need an adapted Motability car and you know, or you know, someone else, you know, the disabled child would need a car. Absolutely, we want to help those people. But I'm not entirely sure why, yes, you've got, you know, I don't know, tennis elbow or anxiety, that should be needed. I think we should definitely put whoever's in charge of Alton Towers in charge of our benefit system. I think they might make quite an improvement.
Well, you know, Julia, it's always the way that when ideology meets reality, certain concessions have to be made. And this is a perfect example of that. And actually, this is much, much fairer to those who are actually have a disability who prevents them from being able to stand in the queue. So I do think that this is, like I say, an example of ideology meeting reality and common sense prevailing. So hopefully we'll see a lot more like this to come, maybe in those schools where they're trying to force girls into trousers.
The bubble has burst, Well, maybe they don't have to queue in front for the loo anymore, who knows. Emma Trimble, Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, thank you very much for joining us. Philip Ingram, I mean, one of those truths, lunacy continues on the trans issue, but in terms of if we all have disabilities, no one has disabilities at Merlin Entertainment.
Well, you know, the next step is putting stand-up urinals in the girls' loos, just so that you have the equality.
I thought you were going to say in the queues for Alton Towers. It'd be quite useful to have toilet cubicles in the queues. They need to be there as well. You know, the stand-up pipes that you see in the streets. I think if you can't cope with crowds and queuing, maybe Alton Towers isn't for you.
Don't go. Exactly.
I mean, is that just me? That'll probably be disabled. Oh well, no, not everyone can do everything. I can't be a ballet dancer. Get over yourselves.
And the SNP, I hear, are going to mandate kilts for everyone, boys and girls.
Don't give them ideas. Seriously, you can't give them ideas because they will do
I can. It'll be funny.
Like
It gives us more to talk about.
Oh, Philip, I mean, what a day, what a morning. Ian Collins is here. What did you make of the Prime Minister today?
Well, what I make of the loos at Alton Towers, I mean, I think that's the first one. I mean, it was only to put the Hall of Mirrors in there, frankly. In the toilets, goodness me. The Prime Minister at 4 o'clock this afternoon, gone.
No.
Gone.
You reckon?
I predict this every time.